Vamos lá, pessoal. Docking da missão AXIOM-1 na International Space Station ISS a 400 km de altitude. Vamos lá, então, AXIOM-1, a missão especialíssima, primeira missão totalmente privada a ir para a ISS, iniciando uma nova era das explorações espaciais de histórico para a humanidade. Foi ontem, 8 de abril de 2022, ao meio-dia e 17 aqui do Brasil. Nós acompanhamos aqui a cobertura completa aqui da primeira live da missão AXIOM-1 da Space Action, da SpaceX e da NASA, uma parceria então, e foi um espetáculo. Vamos lá agora, já vamos colocar aqui então que já estão nos preparativos para o docking, vai ser às 8h45 da manhã, horário do Brasil. Vamos colocar aqui então, direto aqui da NASA.
Spain, Israel, and Canada for outreach in
Espanha,
5
Canadá,
different
a galera
languages.
tá
So,
começando a fazer uma
their mission
cobertura lá, né?
objectives are conducting excellent science, but in addition to that,
Falando um pouquinho das
also helping
pesquisas
to inspire
científicas,
people on Earth to pursue science and engineering studies. The crew
estudos de
represents, as I
engenharia.
mentioned earlier, 4
A gente já
countries and
comentou
will be
bastante sobre esses
completing
estudos
outreach
ontem na
experiments
live.
and events in 5 languages, specifically Spanish, Hebrew, French, English, and Arabic, which, just helps to
algumas são
contribute
5
to
línguas
expanding
diferentes que eles
efforts to
vão
connecting
conduzir
with
ali
more people
alguns
around the world.
experimentos, né? Para conectar com mais pessoas ao redor do mundo, né? Espanhol é a língua-chefe aí, que é do comandante aí, Lopes da Alegria.
Bring surviving pages of the diary written in space by the first Israeli pilot, Israeli astronaut.
A tripulação está ansiosa para trazer coisas novas lá da ISS. São 10 dias que eles vão passar na ISS.
He will also bring a painting created by Ramon's daughter and a song written by his son. So definitely a great nod to
tem artista, piloto artista, tô falando que vai levar uma pintura do filho dele aí
Absolutely.
também.
And, in a similar vein, Larry Connor will be, he shares an Ohio heritage with actually the Orville and Wilbur Wright, who he will also
Larry
be bringing
Connor, que
along
é
a small
astronauta
piece of cloth
artista.
used by the Wright brothers on the first ever powered flight at Kitty Hawk, North Carolina in 1903.
Os irmãos Wright, ele está dizendo que o Larry Connor tem pedaço de roupa aí dos irmãos Brothers,
really,
que vai levar para o espaço aí também. Olha que
AX-1 is the first of several proposed AXIOM missions to the orbiting laboratory, and it's an important
nós
step
levamos
towards
o
AXIOM's
chapéu
goal
do
of
Santos
constructing
Dumont,
a private
foi o
space
astronauta
station,
brasileiro quando foi
AXIOM
para
Station. In low Earth orbit. It'll serve as the global academic and commercial hub, and like I mentioned earlier, will really be the next chapter.
Então tá falando um pouco da economia da Baixa Terra aí, os novos
research
olha
institutions
que
and even
linda,
governments
olha lá,
around the
essa aí
world.
é a Dragon, então, Spacecraft Dragon.
So for now, we are under 10 minutes now for Dragon to reach waypoint 1,
olha só que
getting awesome views of Dragon. So the hatch is open and there is a centerline camera at the center basically of Dragon. That is what Dragon is using to line itself up with the docking target on the International Space Station. Yeah, things are continuing to go smoothly. I'm going to send it back over to Dan at JSC for updates.
Vamos aqui, olha a simulação então, O Nautilus vai ser minha Endeavour.
Andy and
olha a Endeavour aqui então,
we are just 7 minutes away from arrival
milhares de quilômetros por hora andando ali no espaço. Agora ela desacelera
and so
para
Dragon
chegar
right now
na
only
ISS.
just under 330 meters away from the station. It's continuing this spin from underneath station to directly above. We're going to line up on the docking axis at waypoint 1, just 220 meters away from International Docking Adapter number 3, which is on the space-facing port of the Harmony module.
Ceremony of dos astronautas. A coisa mais linda. Vamos lá, vamos
both
acompanhar.
of the international docking adapters on the station right now, which is used for
all
U.S. commercial
aí,
docking
gente.
vehicles. So far, Dragon the only one to make use of it, both the cargo and the crew variants. And we've got another Crew Dragon dock to station that delivered our SpaceX Crew 3 astronauts. And pretty soon we're going to have a second one.
Tá falando das próximas missões do Space Dragon aí, que vai aumentar pouco o cargo,
so in just about 6 minutes we'll hit waypoint 1,
de quilograma que a Endeavour consegue carregar, né, contando aí a carga viva, né, são os astronautas, os equipamentos
and waypoint 2 will be just 20 meters away from the docking port on that space-facing side of Harmony, and then we'll pause at waypoint 2 before we begin that final approach. And so all of this, again, being done autonomously by the flight computers onboard Dragon.
Está sendo aí automático pelos computadores de voo. Olha a galera aí, a galera não sei se está aí no Kennedy Space Center ou no Houston. Esse aí tá a carinha do Kennedy Space Center.
To fine-tune Dragon's path towards the station. Ever since we got in closer, we've been using as the primary means the Dragon Eye system.
Nós estamos chegando perto da ISS, está usando o Dragon Eye System, sistema aí da Dragon aí, uma combinação de ferramentas de navegação espacial, automático, tudo inteligência artificial, né, galera? Inteligência artificial. Como o nosso HAL aqui de 2001.
Gives you a distance output immediately. And so it's using those to constantly ping with station. Dragon Eye also has
os sinaizinhos que a gente viu ali da Dragon, sinaizinhos lasers que vão orientando ali o caminho também para fazer o dock.
We use infrared as it doesn't matter what the lighting conditions
a hora que chega bem pertinho, daqui a pouquinho,
so even if we're
a gente passa pro manual control, que é o controle manual. Ah, coisa linda, ela chega aí.
There's a shot with the Half Moon also.
Half Moon. Uma metade da lua aqui atrás. Que imagem linda!
Space Station at this point. We're just 4 minutes away from waypoint number 1.
Que imagem linda dessa quase lua, meia lua aí.
There's a couple of additional cameras on Dragon. There's 2 pointing directly out of that top hatch. There's a centerline camera and one that's just known as a media camera, just giving us additional views of space station.
Contanto, tem vários tipos de câmera aí para mostrar esse momento aí para nós, aí direto da ISS e também da Endeavour.
Just something that we get to use to bring you along for the ride, and also importantly just gives additional situational awareness for teams on just relative positioning of Dragon. We've not had any issues so far with our approach. We're just about 3.5 minutes from waypoint 1. We don't have video from the space station right now. Unfortunately, we are going to have a couple of gaps just as we get into the really interesting phases as Dragon gets in close, but we'll get that video back pretty quickly. We have all of that signal coming down from station through those TDRS, the tracking data and relay satellites. Every once in a while, the antennas that point towards those satellites might get blocked.
A antena tem que estar posicionada perto dos satélites para não ser bloqueado ali os sinais de comunicação, né?
When we're just out of the range
of the satellites
themselves, we'll usually do what's known as a handover as we just transition between the different TDRS satellites. But we'll have a little bit of blockage during the final approach.
Com a lua de fundo ali, a ISS, a Endeavour e a lua de fundo, que foto linda essa ficou, meu Deus do céu.
Dragon, SpaceX on the big loop. We're 2 minutes out.
SpaceX on the big loop, 2 minutes out.
1 and soft capture ring extension will begin shortly.
Então estamos a 2 minutos de assumir o controle manual. Tá no big loop aí que foi chamado ali pela NASA. Ó, onde ponto de voltar não é permitido mais. Entra o controle manual e aí é para acoplar na ISS. Não tem volta mais.
All of this being done autonomously on Dragon. We've got
tudo isso é inteligência artificial. Agora, um minuto final, assume o controle manual. Agora vai assumir o controle manual que os astronautas vão manejar a espaçonave para acoplar. Olha que isso aqui vai dar uma foto linda aqui também, da ISS. Que foto linda com a lua de fundo, meu Deus do céu! Olha, já é a comunicação direta lá com os astronautas aí. Coisa linda. O Larry Connor que vai falar alguma coisa aí agora.
Copy all, MLA. We had you 3x3 there on Dragon to ground. Good suggestion for Larry to try the big loop. We'll stand by.
Então, o Larry Connor, que é o piloto, vai tentar o big loop, que é o grande loop de acoplamento agora. Vai tentar, não, vai realizar e está entrando aí na órbita do big loop e assumindo o controle manual. Stand-by do controle manual. Estamos a poucos minutos de docking na Estação Espacial Internacional.
Dragon, SpaceX, we've got you 5x5 on the big loop with an
5x5 on the big loop. Dragon, SpaceX, we got you 5x5 on the big loop. Good to go, good to go, good to go, docking on ISS, estamos chegando, olha a lua aí de fundo.
SpaceX, Endeavour, Dragon to ground. I think we'll let Larry be the key transmitter on the big loop, and I'll switch to Dragon.
Stand by, good to go.
Okay, MLA, on Dragon to ground, copy all, and understood.
Show de bola, show de bola. Sem música de fundo, vamos ficar com o silence do espaço, né?
All right, so at this moment, while they were conducting those kind of final comm checks, again, we've been troubleshooting a few issues with the spacecraft commander, Mike LA, to be able to talk on the big loop. But
então, o Michael Lopes Alegria, o comandante, está resolvendo alguns pequenos probleminhas ali. Problemas técnicos normais de ajustes para fazer o dock, né? Então, estão sendo solucionados nesse momento. Michael Lopes Alegria, um espanhol norte-americano. Puxa vida, ó. Vai ficar uma foto linda essa aqui também, ó.
And so they're going to reconfigure C2V2 that's supporting communications for visiting vehicles.
Copy, thanks, Tom.
Puxa vida, ainda vou com a lua de fundo.
Dragon, any attitude that they expect as they monitor Dragon during its final approach.
The final
Teams
approach
here
of
on the
Dragon
ground reporting that the docking ring is beginning to extend out. That'll be used for the soft capture.
And we're ready for docking.
Ready for docking. Cadê meu celular? Queria ver se a transmissão tá ok. Deixa eu olhar por aqui mesmo. Ready for docking, ready to go. Alguns minutos aí, uns
and that was Station Commander Tom Marshburn reporting station crew is ready for the approach and docking. Just as they continue to step through their procedures, you heard 5 and 6. 5 actually has them get a cue to radio down to the ground that they're ready. We'll also hear a chop call out come. That's that crew hands-off point as we get into the final stages of approach. But for right now, we are just under 9.5 minutes away from waypoint 2 arrival. And so waypoint 2 is just 20 meters outside of the space station.
Waypoint 2 é o ponto de entrada 2, 20 metros de entrada da ISS.
Flight Director TJ Kramer here in the Space Station Flight Control Room, leading the integrated teams. We've been in what's known as integrated operations for the last several hours. And that just speaks to the time when Dragon is close enough in towards the station, when the SpaceX and the Space Station flight control teams are kind of working hand in hand as they go through all of these different checkpoints, getting the go from the station side before Dragon proceeds. And so the docking ring on Dragon is beginning to extend.
As the Dragon proceeds along, abriu ali
Andy gave a really great description. There's 3 pedals on the docking ring on Dragon that are basically going to guide it in for that first capture moment with a passive system on the station side in that international docking adapter. After that docking ring then gets retracted, that'll bring Dragon close enough in to enable a series of 12 hooks. And that'll give us a hard mate. After that point, we can continue with a couple of the other post-docking activities, like extending an umbilical that's going to integrate
falando um pouquinho aí de como vai ser o acoplamento, as atividades umbilicais aí que estão acontecer aí para integrar aí o hardware, a comunicação e todo o hardware da nave Endeavour com a ISS.
So in the meantime, we're just about 7.5 minutes away from arrival at waypoint 2.
7 minutos e meio.
And per the timeline, just about 17 minutes, 45 seconds from our expected docking time,
piloto Larry
which was originally slated at about 6:45
17 minutes, 17 minutos.
Central Time, 11:45 GMT. So
a gente vai chegar então no waypoint 2, que são 20 metros. Tem que fazer todo
automatically onboard Dragon.
Uma série de procedimentos, aí já vai levar mais uns 10 minutos para fazer o acoplamento final e abertura do hatch, né?
Burns and the approaches. But at this point, we're under 7 minutes away from waypoint 2.
7 minutes away, 7 minutos do waypoint 2, que são 20 metros da ISS.
And
que linda, a Lua já saiu aí do enquadramento. Estamos vendo somente a Dragon Space Endeavour. Coisa linda, maravilhosa.
The Dragon spacecraft end station at this point.
4 metros por segundo da velocidade, a gente atingiu aí os 28 mil quilômetros por hora no lançamento, a gente acompanhou ontem, né? 28 mil quilômetros por hora, né?
Very fine
ultrassônica e agora 4 metros por segundo. 4 metros por segundo. A Endeavour está se locomovendo agora. Olha que coisa linda, 4 metros por segundo, bem vagarosamente, até chegar aí na SS e fazer o acoplamento. É milimétrico, então. São os ajustes milimétricos para fazer essa entrada na SS. Uma luz maior aí apareceu.
And there you can see some of those thruster firings now as the lighting conditions do change. Again, at this point, we're just using the service section Dracos. So they're around kind of the base of the capsule portion. There's 12 of them in total in 4 clusters of 3. And those are all being fired automatically. Dragon calculating its path in, using the Dragon Eye at this point, bouncing lasers off the space station to see exactly how far away it is, what its range rate, how quickly it's flying in, and then adjusting in real time using those
então o olho da Dragon, que é o nosso HAL ali, está calculando com o laserzinho a distância ali da SS. Então aqueles fire, né, aquelas luzinhas que apareceram, são 12 luzinhas, 4 conjuntos de 3 luzes que ficam em volta ali, fazem parte do sistema óptico da Endeavour para verificar ali a ISS, e o laserzinho no meio que parece um HAL ali, né? Coisa mais linda do mundo, ó. É o nosso HAL de 2001 de sair no espaço, é o laserzinho que fica piscando ali. Para fazer todo o verificação óptica
so that'll be our final waypoint.
Então a gente viu que teve as 12 luzinhas que se acenderam ali para fazer essa verificação final. Coisa linda.
So let's check in over
at Hawthorne, about 15 minutos.
Getting exciting, getting Dragon in real close.
Vamos chegando.
We're in the final stages.
Então aquele centro em
Hawthorne,
é o centro de Hawthorne lá da NASA que está fazendo essa verificação do
docking. To get awesome views of Dragon. We are about a minute and a half away from an
orbital sunset. So,
minuto e meio do
I
think you had already predicted, but lighting conditions might change a little bit. But for now, things are continuing to go super smoothly. If you look closely at the center of Dragon, Dan had talked a lot about the forward bulkhead thrusters. There are some holes that you can see on the bottom of that circular forward bulkhead. There's 2 more that aren't really
tem alguns buraquinhos que a gente consegue ver aqui embaixo, né? Uns holes aqui na SpaceX que já estão começando a ficar preparados aí para o docking no hatch da ISS.
SpaceX, Endeavour, copy off.
Endeavour, copy off. Diga lá, Larry Connor.
So those are where 4 of those 16 Dracos are housed, and we just heard that the soft capture extension has completed, which is a great milestone hit as we are getting closer and closer to the International Space Station and docking just a few minutes from now.
Desse buraquinho da Endeavour.
Yeah, if we're excited about docking, I can only imagine what the crew really feels like. I'm sure, they've had a long journey to here, but once they get there and they ingress into the station, they'll be, hitting the ground running. We talked a little bit earlier about the volume of science experiments that they'll be
falar pouquinho agora que a gente não viu, eu comecei a live depois dos experimentos científicos. A gente falou bastante na live ontem, né, de lançamento.
Are bringing to the station.
Que estão indo lá para
our AX-1 mission pilot Larry Connor has partnered with several research institutions across the US.
Estão relembrando aí as várias instituições lá do Canadá, do Hospital do Câncer lá do Canadá, e ao Larry Connor que está conduzindo.
He will participate in tests and MRIs before and after the mission to really test the effects of microgravity exposure on the human body. He will also conduct cell cultures in space. He was specifically trained for this, to be able to handle these cells while on orbit. And he'll be studying how the aged cells respond to the microgravity and radiation of space as stressors as well. Next, our mission specialist 1, Eitan Stiva, is conducting a variety of studies selected from across Israel in partnership with the Ramon Foundation and the Israel Space Agency. He will be monitoring eye health, cognitive performance, and stress while in space. Other topics selected for the Rakir mission that he's flying under will include the microbiome, fluidics and optics, plastics recycling, cardiovascular health, radiation protection, and other tests of technology and equipment. He will also be observing the Earth's atmosphere for thunderstorms to better understand how lightning is coupled in the upper and lower atmospheres. And on top of all of that, he will also be conducting several education and artistic activities.
O Larry Connor é o nosso artista da parada lá.
This includes reading a Hebrew poem from space for the first time.
Science, technology, education, mathematics.
And Mark Pathy has partnered with multiple Canadian research universities, the Royal Canadian Geographical Society, and the Montreal Children's Hospital to conduct a variety of STEM studies. For the Montreal Children's Hospital, Pathy is examining musculoskeletal pain. The aim is to better understand the genetics and cellular pathways of pain and how the microgravity environment could contribute to pain sensation. Pathy will conduct in other biomedical experiments as well.
Pesquisas de dor, Mark Pathy, então, que é a galera do hospital lá do Canadá, né? Pesquisas como se comporta a dor aí em alguns órgãos humanos. Biomedical experiments, né? Com a galera do Hospital do Câncer, Children's Hospital of Cancer, lá do Canadá, que o Mark Pathy vai conduzir. Muito legal as pesquisas dele também. E a ISS está resolvendo algum troubleshooting lá, né? Tem um probleminha que o time da ISS está resolvendo para fazer o acoplamento, tá? Copy, we are ready. A Endeavour, a Dragon já está
so, quick update from the core. Things are all looking well, and we are going to be holding at waypoint 2, which is coming up in about a minute on screen. Now that we have an orbital night Dragon, and you can see all of the different Draco thrusters around the surface section of the capsule beginning to fire. All of these micro adjustments and micro movements are all
são ajustamentos micro, né? Micro ajustamentos. As luzinhas então da Dragon
and so it knows where it's at, what it needs to do to maintain a position,
para fazer os micro ajustamentos, o laserzinho ali focando ali na ISS. Para o Waypoint 2 que já chegaram, então
so continuing on with Mark Pathy's research, he'll be participating in other biomedical experiments as well. He'll be wearing a biomonitor while exercising to record heart, lung, and circulation performance. He'll monitor changes in sleep and eye health, and he'll also test an augmented reality device intended to assist with medical care in the event of an emergency.
Medical care, estão falando dos experimentos do Mark Pathy lá também, com realidade aumentada para a medical care, né? No caso de emergência. A Houston Station, então, tá falando, confirmando um pouquinho com a Dragon. Vamos escutar.
Copy that, Tom. We are working on video right now. Stand by for more words.
Working on video right now. Estão vendo os ajustes, microajustes dos vídeos.
So as we're approaching waypoint 2, let's head back over to Dan
não chegaram a 20
JSC
metros ainda
for
não,
some
estão
more
chegando.
updates.
Hey, thanks, Johnson, Andy. So as you heard, Dragon is at waypoint 2. So we're just 20 meters away from station. We're holding here. All systems
quem está falando lá pela NASA é
Trish and Andrew. Mission director at Hawthorne has given their go for docking. We're currently just troubleshooting some video accessibility for the crew on board station before the station team's ready to give their final go for docking. So we'll just hang out here at waypoint 2, and this is why we build in these different kind of checkpoints along the way, and we go through a series of go-no-goes just to confirm everything's working as we expect before we continue in. So Dragon's just going to hang out here for a little bit, 20 meters away. The team's here on the ground in Houston troubleshooting video for the crew on board.
Tirei uma fotinha dessa aqui também. A 20 metros aí para fazer o dock.
And the proper attitude. So everything looking good from the station perspective. And as soon as we get this video troubleshot and figured out,
video troubleshot. Os ajustes lá do vídeo lá de
pretty quick from that final approach, just 20 meters away to the docking. Again, we're going to have an initial contact and capture using the soft docking mechanism on board Dragon. It's been fully extended at this point, and it's going to link up with that international docking adapter that just has a passive mechanism on it. And then after that initial contact, the soft capture ring will start to retract on the docking system on board Dragon, bringing it in for a hard main,
at which point we'll be able to engage 12 hooks, os sistemas de software que fazem esse ajuste final aí do acoplamento aí entre a Endeavour e a ISS. To lock it in. Terminar meu café da manhã aqui.
Dragon, SpaceX on Dragon to ground. The issue we're troubleshooting has to do with crew video from the centerline camera. Can you
então, sistemas de vídeo da câmera de satélite que estão resolvendo alguns troubleshooting lá, né?
Big loop on SSC8, we see the same indications. We've got a counting up ET time, but no video indication. Copy that. Give us 2 minutes, and we're hoping it'll be there.
Give us 2 minutes. Larry Toner pediu lá 2 minutos para verificar os sistemas finais lá do vídeo. E a ISS também está fazendo um troubleshoot lá do sistema de vídeo. We have good
Dragon,
video right
SpaceX copied the first half. Did hear the words "good video."
Good video.
If you could elaborate what the second half of the call was.
Pegaram pedaço da comunicação que foi good video. Pediu para complementar aí, ó. Isso pediu para complementar.
Centerline 1 and Centerline 2 cameras and displays 1 and 3 respectively.
Copy all, Dragon. Thank you.
Thank you, Dragon. Então a comunicação lá entre Houston e a Endeavour. Coisa maravilhosa. Thank you, Endeavour.
Okay, so just to walk you through what we're listening to right now. There is a centerline camera on the Dragon spacecraft, and that video gets transmitted wirelessly from the Dragon capsule over to the station using that C2V2, that common communication for visiting vehicles. That's that connection that's been sending data, voice, video between station.
Então essa troca de dados, comunicação e vídeo entre a ISS e a Endeavour, via satélite, né? A comunicação via satélite teve um pequeno probleminha e eles estão resolvendo essa troca aí de dados e vídeo e comunicações entre as duas naves, né? Se a gente chama a ISS de uma nave também. O C still assessing, então estão consertando ali os detalhes de comunicação entre as duas espaçonaves.
Essentially what we're trying to do is get the view from that centerline camera.
Tentando acessar o vídeo daquela câmera do satélite, né? Centerline camera, a câmera central, é uma câmera importante ali que está sendo ajustada, né? Para assistir o vídeo do display, que tem os overlays ajustados aí para o monitoramento da tripulação no final approach. Então é uma câmera importante aí que está sendo ajustada.
One of our flight rules is we need that centerline video to be available to the station crew.
Ela tem que estar disponível para a tripulação para fazer o acoplamento. Então, essa câmera é importante para ser
So the team's right now just troubleshooting a couple of steps to get that video to the SSC, the space station support computer that the crew's using for monitoring. So they're trying a couple of different computers. They're going to try a couple of resets and reconfigs to get that video up and running for the crew. So right now we're just hanging out at waypoint 2. We're about 20 meters away from the space station. We can continue to hold here while they troubleshoot.
Houston na escuta.
And again, we're just waiting for that video issue to get worked out for the crew, and then as soon as we get that, we can continue on with the docking.
Assim que a gente resolver esse problema do centerline video, a gente continua aí com o docking, né? O colega da NASA está dizendo, uma nova imagem aí da ISS, coisa linda. Ai, que coisa linda demais da conta. Vamos lá, uma fotinha. Coisa linda a ISS aí, meu Deus do céu. Fotinha com a ISS. Uma foto pequena agora. A ISS, coisa linda. Coisa linda. Puxa, essa aqui vai ficar legal também. A galera nos ajustes finais ali, ó.
One of the ones that we just had
essa foto eu queria ter tirado ontem, não consegui. Vem cá, astronautinha, vamos sair
to the station crew, which they then will have on one of their station support computers, and it has an overlay over it that just shows a couple of different telemetry feeds as well.
Overlay ali que eles estão dizendo. Olha a ISS aí, coisa linda, coisa linda, coisa linda, coisa linda.
Dragon docking monitor version 1.3. In the execute note, it says Dragon crew be version 3.1.
Eu queria uma com os computadores ali da tripulação. Bota aí os computadores, please, Realston. Screen layout.
Possibly chosen on the SSCs is 1.3. Copy, stand by.
Copy, stand by. Consegui uma foto aí com a tripulação, coisa linda, coisa linda, ai que delícia! Coisa linda essa foto com a tripulação aí da ISS, o cara tá com, o astronauta tá com a mão levantada ali, talvez é o Larry Connor ou o Michael Lopes Alegria. A gente vê aí todos os softwares ali que eles estão utilizando do acoplamento do dock. Oh, meu Deus do céu, que coisa maravilhosa do mundo!
And Raja, back with you on 2. First of all, thanks for giving us the added information. The configuration you're seeing with the 3.1 and the 1.3, those are expected. That's what we want you to see. For troubleshooting, what we want you to do is go to SSC 17 and SSC 8, close docking monitor on both, and then reopen only on SSC 8 in the lab.
Eles estão dando os detalhes técnicos aí de como resolver o problema das câmeras, né? São 12 câmeras ajustadas ao redor ali. Algumas delas deram problema. A câmera central é importantíssima. E Houston está em contato com o Endeavour right now, dando os ajustezinhos que eles têm que realizar nas câmeras para fazer esse acoplamento perfeito ali da Endeavour com a
Okay, Capcom Scott Sagady here in Houston giving some troubleshooting steps to NASA astronaut Roger Curry on board the station. Again, Dragon right now, we're just holding at waypoint 2, just about 20 meters away from the station while we troubleshoot an issue getting video from the Dragon centerline camera to the crew and their support computer on station. That's a requirement for their monitoring during this final approach. So Roger was just given the instructions to go to 2 of the different SSCs, the station support computers, one located in the station's cupola, and then one located in the Destiny laboratory. And he's going to essentially turn the monitoring application off on the computer on both of those, and then return to the one in the Destiny lab.
Então eles estão verificando o sistema de monitoramento das câmeras, né? Lá na ISS também e na Dragon também. Tem o famoso desliga e religa, né? Dá algum problema de computador ali, ó. Desliga e religa que funciona de novo. Ctrl Alt Del. No espaço é pouco mais delicado aí esse
so they're continuing to troubleshoot this view from Dragon, looking straight down the barrel of the international docking adapter, continuing to essentially just float
adaptador de docking então da
ISS, just about 20 meters away from that docking port.
Continua ali floating,
Again,
né?
we're continuing to go through some IT support steps, some troubleshooting to get live video from that centerline camera from Dragon over to the station crew on their monitoring computers, as that's one of the requirements that's in place.
Puxa vida, que momento lindo aí, olha só, direto ali de dentro ali da Endeavour, a gente acompanhar esses momentos aí. Agora Houston, Houston, esse bate-bola legal, galera ali auxiliando ali. Não passou nenhuma imagem aqui de dentro da ISS ainda, né? Da recepção dos astronautas que estão lá dentro para fazer a cerimônia de recepção. A partir das 10h30, nós estamos 8h48 da manhã aqui no Brasil, 8h48, dia 9 de abril de 2022, um sábado maravilhoso aqui em Chapecó, chuvoso, delícia, e estamos se aproximando da ISS lá agora. 8h48, a cerimônia de receber os astronautas estava agendada para aproximadamente 10h30 da manhã. Então estamos indo aí com 1h30 ainda para acontecer essa abertura do hatch e a entrada dos astronautas, os 4 astronautas da Dragon na ISS. Ainda temos 1h30 ainda de acompanhamento aqui desse momento histórico aí para a humanidade. Primeira missão totalmente privada a acoplar na ISS para experimentos científicos em toda a história da humanidade. É o próximo grande passo aí de fazer uma nova economia de aeroespacial, juntando aí todo o expertise aí da NASA como gerenciadora, e lançadora. O Kennedy Space Center é da NASA, né, onde foi lançado também. Todo essa administração e a execução, os materiais, software, o crew, a calculação, tudo são privados, os astronautas são privados, são aposentados, alguns aposentados da NASA, né? E são os 4 privados. Eles são totalmente privados, uma nova era da exploração espacial. A NASA intenciona fazer uma exploração comercial da ISS, acoplar os módulos comerciais também. A SpaceX que está organizando isso para 2024, para liberar caminho para a NASA olhar para a Lua e para focar no programa Artemis, que é Minha Menina dos Olhos, e focar na colonização da Lua nessa década, né, de 2020, e um passinho para Marte depois. Então, estão ali ajustando ali, já estão a Waypoint 2, que é o ponto de caminhada 2, 20 metros da ISS. Estão fazendo os ajustes finais de vídeo, que tiveram um troubleshoot lá nos vídeos, estão ajustando.
Copy all Dragon, sit tight.
Copy all Dragon. Copy all Dragon.
And we got an update from the core that we have at least 2 hours to troubleshoot. Hopefully not that long, but at least 2 hours of
at least 2 hours of troubleshooting. Hopefully not, but not that long. At least 2 hours. Pelo menos 2 horas para resolver esses detalhes técnicos aí. Então já tem uma previsão de tempo para fazer esses ajustes aí. Então vamos ter um atraso na cerimônia de recepção dos astronautas em pelo menos 2 horas. Estava marcada para as 10h30 da manhã no Brasil. Vai aí para meio-dia e meio já. Depois do meio-dia que vai ser esse movimento aqui no horário do Brasil. Tivemos
this is the centerline camera on Dragon looking straight down at the station, and again we're directly above them, so you're starting to see some city lights pass in
pelo menos umas 2 horas para resolver esses problemas lá, tá?
From those views.
E a live eu vou deixar rolando aqui. A gente coloca uma música.
And we're going to continue in this orbital nighttime for about 13 more minutes, and then we'll see the sun start to rise. We will have a couple of gaps coming up with some of our video coverage right around the same time the sun starts to come up. But otherwise, we should continue to get pretty steady views from the space station. And we're just holding at Waypoint 2, Dragon just 20 meters away from its docking port. As teams here in Mission Control Houston troubleshoot a video issue, getting the view from that centerline camera on Dragon to the crew, to one of their support computers that they're going to use for monitoring during this final approach. And that's in our flight rules, is just one of those items that needs to be operational before the teams can give the joint go to continue in. So the teams are discussing what our options are while they continue to work through this troubleshooting steps. We've got approximately 2 hours of margin in the propellant for Dragon to just continue to hang here at waypoint 2, just about
as 2 horas aí para resolver o probleminha lá, né?
So it's holding itself stationary, flying essentially in formation with the orbit lab.
Está segurando a Endeavour voando stationary. Então está a Endeavour em órbita estacionária juntinho com a ISS, rodando ali em órbita estacionária paradinha, esperando o troubleshoot a 20 metros da ISS, esperando o troubleshoot dos sistemas de câmera e alinhamento final para o dock. Vai demorar aí umas 2 horas ainda para resolver isso.
Has jumped in and has been running some remote steps from down here onto that support computer. The crew is gathered inside the Destiny laboratory on board station at one of our 2 monitoring stations, essentially. We have one down in the cupola, in the window that looks directly down towards the Earth, where Rajachari was initially.
Legal que tem aí
we also have an additional
legenda, né? Dá pra gente acompanhar aqui em legenda também o que a galera está transmitindo aí, legendas automáticas aqui que eu coloquei no StreamYard, na transmissão aqui pro meu YouTube, Vilca Martins, e Facebook, Vilca Martins. Aproveitando, vou colocar os nossos banners aqui,
so
né?
The team's just continuing to figure out what the issue could be. Again, we've confirmed we've got good centerline video camera
AXIOM
on board Dragon.
Foi sucesso, o launch foi sucesso
able to see it down here on the ground, and just trying to work what that disconnect is with the crew on station getting
onde está sendo transmitido, o YouTube Vilca Martins. Se quiser acompanhar e me seguir, fiquem convidados, né? O Face também, Facebook Vilca Martins, e o Instagram Vilca Martins Escritor. Tá cedinho aqui no 9 de abril, no nosso querido Brasil. Quem entrar aí, por favor, comentários. Quero aí conversar um pouquinho, que vamos a 2 horas aqui. Eu tenho que ter 2 horas de bate-papo aqui entre Houston, Dragon e entre nós aqui também. Alguém que entrar aí, por favor, comente alguma coisa aí conosco, que nós vamos ter que trocar papo aqui, ó. Encher papo de linguiça aqui. Para esperar o troubleshooting lá da Endeavour, que vai levar umas 2 horas ainda das câmeras para fazer o acoplamento docking na ISS. Momentos no vácuo aí, o pessoal para um pouquinho aí de falar. Vou parar de falar também. Terminar o meu café, que eu não terminei ainda. Opa, série Robôs Império do Isaac Asimov sendo produzida aqui pela editora Aleph, aqui no Brasil. Oh, coisa linda. Robôs Império, oh, maravilha.
And this is Mission Control Houston again. We're just continuing to hold
Robôs
for the
Império.
moment, waiting for teams to troubleshoot a video
foto linda essa aqui, ó.
On board.
Robôs Império do Isaac Asimov. A nova série sendo produzida pela editora Aleph.
The final
vendo aqui em 15 de
systems
abril.
we have to have
Coisa linda aí, parabéns, Aleph. Isaac Asimov, o principal autor de ficção científica da humanidade, um grande divulgador da ciência, nosso Isaac Asimov, né? Junto com Carl Sagan, são os dois principais divulgadores científicos da humanidade. Não os principais cientistas, né? Mas divulgadores científicos que tornar a ciência mais acessível a todos, né? Carl Sagan na astronomia e Isaac Asimov na ciência geral, né? Ele pesquisou todos os assuntos, né? Todos, escreveu nos 10 assuntos na classificação de Dewey. São 10 tipos de assuntos diferentes. Engenharia, matemática, poesia, filosofia e sei lá o que mais. Ele escreveu todos esses assuntos. Só um que não. Acho que só filosofia. Acho que só filosofia foi o assunto que Isaac Asimov não escreveu. Escreveu mais de 500 livros. Foi um parênteses para dar o meu beijo aqui para Isaac Asimov. Foi o dia da morte dele agora, alguns dias atrás, 6 de abril. 6 de abril foi o dia da morte do grande Isaac Asimov, escritor de ficção científica. Vou voltar aqui para Endeavour aqui então. Estão conversando lá com o Houston. Conversas entre a tripulação da Endeavour e o Johnson Space Center aqui em Houston, né? Todos apostos, conversando, fazer o troubleshooting dos sistemas de acoplamento de hatching entre a ISS e a Dragon Endeavour. Coisa linda, coisa linda.
And we just heard a recap of our current situation from the Capcom here in Houston, Scott Zagidi. So again,
our advisors, so check us on the way in when we get cleared in.
Houston Station on 2 for crew constraint.
Dragon, SpaceX on Dragon to ground. I have to apologize, I didn't get
just checking in if the crew no exercise constraint bands that is currently about to expire, if that will be extended based on the current delay.
Dragon, SpaceX on Dragon to ground. Can you repeat your last? I'm going to mute my other channels and listen only to you.
Eles estão cortando a comunicação lá.
You know, Jake, I don't have the ability to do that, so I'd like to wait for this conversation to end on the big loop, and then I'll repeat it.
So a quick recap of our current situation. Crew Dragon Endeavour still holding at waypoint 2, just about 20 minutes away from its intended docking port on the International Space Station. We've got about 2 hours, a little less now.
Então já está 20 minutos no waypoint 2, né?
Where we can
Estamos a 20 minutos resolvendo troubleshooting lá, né?
While we troubleshoot an issue getting video over to the crew monitoring on board the space station. So that's one of the checks we have to have in place for their ability to monitor final approach. So the Pluto flight controller here in Houston is going through a number of steps right now, trying to get them video through an alternate path through a video program on board.
Dragon, SpaceX on Dragon to ground, ready to copy.
Jake, what I was saying is, in anticipation of some kind of a protracted delay here, we have raised our visors, so be sure to double check with us if and when we get cleared to go back in.
Dragon, copy all. Visors raised and absolutely understand. We'll be in touch with any sort of forward plan. I'm sure you're copying on the big loop that troubleshooting
os visors,
on the ISS
os visores raised estão falando a comunicação lá que a Dragon disse, né?
Thank you for your patience.
E o Houston está dizendo obrigado pela paciência aí, os sistemas de visor aqui estão na escuta, aguardando aí, ó. Visors are up.
Good work, Jake. Thank you.
Thank you. A comunicação entre a Dragon Endeavour e Houston Johnson
and the AX-1 crew taking their visors
Good
up,
work, thank you.
Their suits not pressurized, as they continue to hold just 20 meters away from station. So again, we'll continue to hold here at waypoint 2. The team's here on the ground troubleshooting issues, trying to find now an alternate path to get that centerline camera video to Rajachari and the crew on station who have to monitor during that final approach. If their current troubleshooting doesn't work, we've got a ground pass coming up in about 25 minutes from now, where Dragon will be passing over a SpaceX-supported ground site, which also has the capability to get that centerline video down, and then we'll have another option to try and route that over to the space station crew. So, troubleshooting continued. We're going to wait until we get the centerline camera video up and running before we continue with the docking. But for now, we're just stepping through the troubleshooting. So with that, why don't we jump over and check in with Andy and Trisha, as again, we're just standing by here for this issue to get resolved. So, Andy?
Update aí da situação.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Trish and I are also, standing by, and hopefully we hear good news from all of the folks here.
E o Dan que está falando de Houston lá, né? Nós acompanhamos ele ontem, né? O Dan está em Houston e ainda em Trisha está falando talvez ali do Kennedy Space Center.
And this is really the first hiccup that we've seen. So again, we have a couple of options that we are looking into.
Então tá tudo sob controle até agora, uma ride bem smooth, bem macia, que foi a palavra que ele usou ali. Então, a 20 metros aí do Waypoint 2, 20 metros da ISS no ponto de órbita 2, né?
So Dragon has been
esperando aí o caminho de entrada para o docking, resolvendo um problema lá dos vídeos de comunicação.
So after Dragon had separated from Falcon 9, it began what we call the activation and rendezvous phase of the mission. During this phase, Dragon was configured for on-orbit operations. This phase begins after Dragon separates from Falcon 9 and ends with the completion of the final co-elliptic burn.
The initial orbit that the Dragon was in was about 190 kilometers by 210 kilometers. Those values represented the perigee and the apogee of the orbit respectively, or in other words, the lowest and the highest point over Earth. That means that the orbit wasn't a perfect circle, but more like a slight ellipse.
Tem uma órbita de elipse que ele entrou a 210 km por segundo ali.
A series of burns which gradually raised its orbit to align more closely with the station.
A órbita que ele entra depois que ele faz o desacoplamento do stage lá do Falcon 9 para entrar na órbita elíptica para acessar a ISS. Estou comentando como foi ali depois do lançamento. O phase burn,
and this raises Dragon's orbit until its orbit reaches an altitude of just 10 kilometers lower than the space station.
Ó, olha lá.
It was followed soon after by a close co-elliptic burn that placed Dragon on an orbit roughly co-elliptic with the space station, which means that the crew was about 10 kilometers lower than the station during the entire orbit around the Earth.
The third maneuver is the transfer burn, where we're raising Dragon's apogee, or the highest point of its orbit, to just 2.5 kilometers below the station. And then we rounded everything out with a final co-elliptic burn.
O transfer burn, 2,5 km da estação,
the station, this time just 2.5
até chegar na final
co-elliptic burn. That's where we picked up to get into the approach initiation phase and the final stages of Dragon's rendezvous with the space station. This was also when integrated operations between the Dragon control team located here in Hawthorne and the space station flight controllers in Mission Control Houston started. The teams transitioned to integrated operations about 45 minutes right before approach initiation.
Yeah, that's really where we began our broadcast just over 2 hours ago.
E aí são as distâncias da ISS, ó, 20.000 quilômetros,
in tandem with NASA teams in Houston to activate and
20.000 quilômetros é o phase burn,
Dragon, including
que é o
the bidirectional
desacoplamento
communications that Dan mentioned earlier
segundo estágio do
with the
Falcon
station
9,
using the C2
e ela
V2
entra na
system, which
primeira
stands
órbita,
for
20.000 quilômetros da
Common
ISS.
Communications for
Tem
Visiting
o boost
Vehicles.
burn ali,
This
aí
also
ele entra
sets
numa
up data
segunda
stream from
órbita, vai
Dragon
fazendo
to the
órbitas
station,
elípticas,
giving another path for Dragon
diminuindo,
telemetry to come to ground, and giving an additional command capability to astronauts aboard
até
the
o
station.
centro da ISS.
We'll also
Aí ele
maneuver
entra a
Dragon
10
to the
quilômetros,
proper
ó,
attitude or
é o
orientation
elliptic burn,
and
o
initialize
transfer
the
burn a
navigation
10
sensors used
quilômetros
for
da
the
ISS.
methodical approach to the station.
diminui para 2,5 km.
And a little bit of time ago, the Draco thrusters on Dragon fired for the approach initiation burn when the Dragon was about 2.5 kilometers below the station and just about 7 kilometers behind it. That swung Dragon up until it was about 400 meters directly below the station.
Até chegar no
and that maneuver also moved Dragon inside one of the 2 safety zones that Dan mentioned earlier around the station that required a set of go or no-go poles with
entra
the different
nas zonas de segurança.
Yeah, the first zone is called the approach ellipsoid. It's an
approach ellipsoid é a primeira zona de segurança.
Shape measuring 4 kilometers by 2 kilometers by 2 kilometers, essentially a large 3-dimensional oval around the International Space Station. Before Dragon is given permission to move inside this ellipsoid, referred to the teams as the AE, it's configured to be what is known as a 24-hour safe trajectory. And what this means is that if Dragon were to somehow lose control of all of its thrusters, it would be at least 24 hours before its orbital path would take it inside of the approach ellipsoid.
Então é o elipsoide de segurança. A hora que ele chega nesse ponto, né? Ele tem 24 horas lá de tempo. Eu não entendi aqui direito o que são essas 24 horas, né? Mas é um ponto de segurança ao redor da órbita da ISS, onde a Endeavour já se entrou. O approach initiation, né?
As all systems checked out to approach to waypoint 1 and through it.
Yeah, at this point, the teams pass through
400 metros da ISS são essa zona de segurança aí que o colega
está
mostrando aqui para nós, né?
Sort of another imaginary
waypoint 1, 220 metros, ó. Waypoint 0 é o 400 metros, que entra na zona de segurança. Waypoint 0, 400 metros da ISS. Waypoint 1 é 220 metros, já entra no mais próximo. E aí no Waypoint 2 que nós estamos agora, a Endeavour está agora, são a 20 metros.
The docking adapter of the International Space Station. The folks here on ground can also see that video.
A 220 metros da ISS é o Keep Out Sphere.
Video feed
é a
to the
esfera de proteção ali da órbita da ISS para não ter nenhuma interferência também ali de equipamentos ali que pode colocar em risco a órbita da ISS também, né? Então, o Keep Out Sphere. Ele já entrou, nós já entramos no Waypoint 2, Waypoint 1, que é o 220 metros da ISS, agora estamos no Waypoint 2, que é a 20 metros. Então, ó, lembrando, o Waypoint 0, o ponto de entrada de caminho é 0, é a 400 metros da ISS, onde é o Approach Initiation. Depois da 220, metade de 220 metros é o Waypoint 1, e o Waypoint 2, caminho de entrada 2, é a 20 metros. Então, já estamos pertinho aí para fazer o docking, já é para fazer o docking. Então, resolvendo alguns problemas lá nos sistemas de acoplamento de vídeo monitoramento. Beleza? Vamos aguardar aí, então. Ainda vai um tempo aí.
So while we're waiting for some updates, it's worth discussing, excuse me, the mission patch of the AXIOM-1 mission. So at the heart of the patch is the venerable ISS itself, which is the core of this pioneering private research mission, reflects AX-1's role as a precursor for future activity in low Earth orbit, and a key step towards the ISS's commercial successor, Axiom Station. The flags of the 4 countries adorn the ISS in the middle there in the form of its solar arrays. It represents the multinational crew and reinforces the importance of international collaboration and exploration. And in the background, a cascading plane of blue represents Earth's atmosphere and the journey humanity has traveled to arrive in this new era, among the first steps in expanding human presence in low Earth orbit. The 4 bright stars you see kind of at the top there, one for each crew member, and an atom at the center of that constellation represents the expedition's scientific and aspirational goals. The very top, the last name of each crew member, Commander Michael Lopez Alegria of the USA and Spain, pilot Larry Connor of the USA, mission specialist Mark Pathy of Canada, and mission specialist Eitan Stiba of Israel adorn the top of the design. The bottom highlights the Earth overflown, while the mission's historic significance is spelled out in the first private crew to the ISS.
Mostra ali a órbita da ISS, também bonito, com as bandeiras ali em cima, bonito aí o patch.
By the logo of Rakia, the mission's name in Stiba's home country, which marks the significance of this mission to the people of Israel, as it's really their return to
lembrou da
flight
missão Rakia, uma missão significativa para o pessoal de Israel, né?
Elon Ramon. So,
retorno ao voo, né?
Certainly a patch filled with
ao primeiro astronauta nazista, Elon Ramon.
Yeah, this is definitely one of my favorite patches. I especially love the
muito
significado
aí
esses simbolismos aí para a tripulação, né? That the team is going to do.
O colega ali, o Andrew está dizendo,
earlier in the launch webcast, we saw inside the capsule,
esse símbolo aí da missão, né?
Demo 2 and Crew 2, which this capsule has flown before, and so I'm hoping that this patch will also join the other 2 patches inside the capsule of the Dragon.
Absolutely. And if you're hearing some noise in the background of our broadcast, it's worth mentioning that we are in a rocket factory here at SpaceX Hawthorne, so there's still a lot of activity going on.
Eles estão em Hawthorne, então está dizendo que está tendo umas atividades ali de testes de foguetes, por isso tem barulho aí de fundo, né? Nessa manhã de sábado, 9 de abril de 2022.
Production is starting to pick up again. And that's really just par for the course here for us at SpaceX.
Absolutely. I mean, it's certainly going to be a busy time for SpaceX with, the launches that are upcoming in the next couple weeks.
Nas próximas semanas, novo lançamento da SpaceX, né?
Members of the AX-1 crew.
Acho que é 20
our mission commander is Michael Lopez Alegria, who is a decorated former NASA astronaut. He was born in Madrid, Spain, and has also called Mission Viejo, California.
Michael Lopez Alegria falando pouquinho do comandante aí.
He is a U.S. Navy captain and has flown 3 times aboard the space shuttle and once aboard Soyuz, so he's certainly no stranger to low Earth orbit life. And he has conducted 10 spacewalks in his career, which means extravehicular activity outside of the ISS, and that's accumulated into 67 hours and 40 minutes in the vacuum of space.
67 horas de voo espacial aí no vácuo espacial,
he was inducted into the Astronaut Hall of Fame.
And sitting next to MLA is the pilot for AX-1, Larry Connor from Dayton, Ohio. Larry is an entrepreneur and a nonprofit activist investor. He has won aerobatic flying competitions and summited both Mount Kilimanjaro and Mount Rainier. Through AX-1, he will become the first private pilot to reach the International Space Station. He will also become the first human to reach both the deepest ocean depths and enter the balance of outer space within 1 year. Larry has been actively involved with the Mayo Clinic and the Cleveland Clinic for many years, helping to understand the effects of aging.
Os efeitos de células de envelhecimento no corpo humano, né? Lá em Cleveland, com o pessoal de Cleveland, Mayo Clinic.
Deepest depths of space, and then all the way to low Earth orbit. I mean,
também que ele trabalha.
Agora, o Eitan Stiba de Israel. And then our mission specialist 1, Eitan Stiba, is now the second Israeli ever to fly to space. Eitan served for more than 4 decades as a fighter pilot pilot in the Israeli Air Force, where he received the Distinguished Aviator Medal. And today he is an impact investor and philanthropist. Mentioned earlier what a special mission this is for Eitan and the country of Israel. He's working under the banner of the Rakia mission, which has the maxim, there is no dream beyond reach. During his time on the ISS, he'll facilitate several scientific experiments, educational outreach, as well as artistic activities.
And rounding out our crew, Mark Pathy is an entrepreneur, investor, and philanthropist, as well as the mission specialist too on this AX-1 mission. Pathy is currently the Chief Executive Officer and Chairman of Montreal-based Maverick, a privately owned investment and financing company he founded that focuses on innovation and social impact. As a strong believer in the importance of philanthropy, Pathy is a member of the boards and executive committees of the Montreal Children's Hospital Foundation, Don LaRue, and the Pathy Family Foundation. Through the AX-1 mission, Pathy has become Canada's second private astronaut and the 12th Canadian to go into space.
É o 12º canadense a ir para o espaço.
So yeah, that was our 4 crew members,
São
and again
they are
inside of our Dragon capsule Endeavour, just parked about 20 meters away from the International Space Station.
From the ISS,
again, waiting on some video troubleshooting. That the teams here on the ground are currently working through. If you are just joining us, this is a live mission for the AX-1 mission.
AX-1 mission. Se você chegou na live agora, a gente está fazendo a docking da Endeavour na ISS.
We have some
primeira missão totalmente privada
that we're working through to hopefully get that video feed to the International Space Station and resume docking operations.
And we've, throughout this whole process, we've really heard mission control here at SpaceX, as well as mission control over in Houston, really in lockstep with each other in integrated operations. It really highlights how much of a collaborative effort things like this are. There's
a esforço colaborativo, trabalho multinacional aí de várias
empresas. To put a human into space safely. The safety of the crew, both in the Dragon capsule and also on the ISS is paramount, and it's always the number one focus. So everyone, you really want to make sure that each step that you take, you confirm that everything is, good to go.
Yeah, and that's why, as part of the procedures, we have these holds built into the operations and to verify all of the checks. In this particular moment, confirming that video feed on the International Space Station side is part of the flight operation. So again, the team is going through and doing their due diligence to make sure that everything
o time está com muita diligência corrigindo os detalhes lá para fazer o docking, que faz parte aí do
Absolutely.
Faz parte do
and in
show
preparation
aí, né?
for troubleshooting moments like
A
this,
Capsule
or
Dragon então
just
vai fazer o
generally
docking.
life aboard the
Nós estamos
ISS, or
ansiosos
going
aqui
through
para esse
launches like
momento aí
this.
após resolver esses
The crew
video
members also
troubleshootings,
have
né?
to go through several hours of training. I mean, like
São
they
muitas
went
horas de
through
treinamento
700
para
to
chegar nesse momento
8,000
que
hours
a
of training
tripulação
starting
passa,
in
né? Tá
August
lembrando,
of
foram entre
2021.
700 e 1.000 horas
So,
cada
it
astronauta
was
passando
a
por
lot of
treinamentos
investment of time and resources that they put into
desde
preparing
2021
for
até
this mission.
agora.
I mean, they really
Muito
went above and
investimento de
beyond.
tempo e dedicação e força e garra aí desses astronautas para fazer o treinamento, né?
Yeah, the International Space Station and the Dragon capsule have just passed over Peru. Again, continuing to circle the Earth. We are
Estão
in an
circulando a
orbital,
órbita terrestre, né?
daytime.
Nosso querido planeta Terra.
But again, we are still holding at
A
waypoint
ISS
0
está
or
sobre o
waypoint
Peru agora nesse momento.
2, about 20 meters away
9h19 aqui no Brasil.
the docking adapter.
A órbita, então, da ISS está sobre o Peru. Cadê aqui a nossa querida América Latina? Aqui, a América Latina aqui. Vamos ver aqui onde que está
So,
a
Andy,
ISS
there's
nesse exato
no
momento
doubt that
aqui,
the
ó.
incredible efforts of
América
thousands of
Latina,
folks
aí, ó.
across NASA over the last 2
Estamos aqui,
decades
ó.
have set the
A América
stage for,
Latina,
what is
Brasilzinho.
possible
Olha
in
o
low
Peru
Earth
aqui do
orbit.
ladinho aqui, ó.
The AX-1 mission is a critical
A ISS
step
está
towards opening these
exatamente aqui, ó,
possibilities
a
to a
400
host of new
quilômetros de distância
participants,
do
governments,
Peru aqui, ó.
diverse
Estamos
researchers,
nesse momento
manufacturers,
aqui, ó,
and
a
more
400
people.
quilômetros do Peru.
Here on Earth, we're
que
already
show de
seeing
bola,
benefits from
que show de
research
bola, que
currently
lindo
conducted on the
isso.
ISS, from water and air purification systems to testing medical devices as well as
Tá
therapeutics.
falando um pouquinho dos experimentos
In addition to
científicos,
tech
testar os experimentos
demos
médicos
and
aí
medical
com água
research, Access to low Earth orbit allows for a connection to the arts and other outreach opportunities.
Medical research,
AX-1 is the first of several proposed missions in the advance of Axiom Station, the world's first commercial space station.
É a primeira
sustainable commercial low Earth
commercial station. A partir de 2024 vão ter módulos comerciais acoplados na ISS também.
Available. It also frees up NASA and its partners to put their budget towards other exploration programs while granting space agencies around the world more opportunities through commercial efforts.
Absolutely. And over its lifetime, the ISS has accomplished an unprecedented feat. It's continuously sustained operations on and off the Earth for more than 20 years, which is not only a true testament to the technology required to physically achieve that,
a ISS há 20 anos conduzindo pesquisas espaciais internacionais, muita tecnologia investida lá, né?
E agora com a colaboração
de empresas privadas, né?
work together to push humanity forward. And as we move forward, private industries like Axiom Space need time to learn how to establish and maintain those relationships effectively. So by flying our private astronaut missions like AX-1 to the ISS, Axiom is taking essential steps to get that on-the-job training as we work towards building the world's first commercial space station. Axiom Station is an opportunity to continue the story of the ISS, science and research through cooperation and collaboration on a global scale for the benefit of all. So, AX-1 is really the next chapter.
Colaboração numa global scale para benefício de todos nós.
As we continue to wait for updates of the video troubleshooting issue, we are going to check in with Dan over at JSC in Houston.
Comportamento do corpo humano, dor, os astronautas lá com o hospital médico lá do Canadá,
do Canadá, just current status, we're still hanging out at waypoint 2, just 20 meters away. We are coming up on our next troubleshooting steps, though. So the issue we ran into a little bit earlier is getting what's known as the centerline camera. So that's that camera view directly right down the middle, essentially the docking hatch of Dragon, pointing at the docking port on station. And one of our flight rules requires that video to be visible on board the space station for the crew monitoring Dragon during its final approach after we proceed in from waypoint 2. So the teams have gone through a couple of steps to try and troubleshoot that to get the video up to the crew. We have coming up in just a couple of minutes a ground pass. So a couple of things are going to happen over the next few minutes. First, we're going to get our KU coverage back with the space station in about a minute and a half. So we'll get views back from the space station. We'll also get that high rate data link where we can essentially also send video signals up to the station.
Então eles já estão verificando aí.
And about 7:23 Central, so in about 2 minutes, Dragon's going to be doing a pass over a SpaceX ground site, which offers another path to get video from Dragon down.
Então, as órbitas,
so
eles estão esperando novas órbitas de reentrância ali, novo caminho para fazer a comunicação do vídeo da Dragon com o ISS.
To hopefully get
Vai
it
levar
into their
algum tempo ainda para fazer essa adequação
monitoring.
aí. Essa correção tem que ser tudo milimetricamente ali calculado para fazer esse docking, né?
Yeah, Roger, wanted to give you a heads up on our plan here. Any moment now, we are expecting KU to come back at this point. We're going to route some camera views so that we can see Dragon better from the ground here. At 12:23, so about 1 minute from now, we are expecting to get a video feed from SpaceX.
Eles estão esperando aí lá em Hawthorne, esperando ter vídeo feed ali, uma alimentação de vídeo da ISS a partir de 1 minuto, 5 minutes, an hour. Vamos fazer um check aí se a Dragon está em uma boa posição para o acoplamento. Então tem que esperar o loop aí, a órbita, as duas naves estão em órbita, né? Então a órbita tem que se alinhar até conseguir. É tipo assim, ó, ela vem em espiral, a nave rodando em espiral, a ISS também está em órbita, também espiralizada ao redor da Terra. E elas têm que entrar num loopzinho aí até fazer o docking.
Dragon, on Dragon to ground. I'm sure you copied all on the big loop.
On the big loop, estão entrando no big loop.
Zipping up a plan here, and I'll let you know before we command resume.
Configurando um novo plano ali e vai passar os detalhes aí para Houston.
And so again, right now we're standing by for Dragon to make that pass over a SpaceX ground site. The plan, we've now got some additional cameras trained on Dragon, just giving the teams additional alignment insight into the capsule as it still hangs out 20 meters away from the docking port. We're just beginning a pass over station ground sites now, and teams are going to work to get that video up to the crew. This ground site pass will last for about 5 minutes. That means the video will likely not be available for the entirety of that final approach. However,
Dragon,
the way the flight
on
rules
the
are written,
confirm crew readiness for final approach.
Confirmaram final approach, hein? Confirmaram final approach. Olha que foto linda essa aqui. Confirmaram final approach no Big Loop lá, hein? Então, foram rápidos na resolução do problema lá, hein?
On the Big Loop, resume imminent. Dragon is entering approach 2.
Dragon is entering approaching 2. E que legal, que joia, hein? Olha a SS, olha a Terra ali embaixo. Estamos sobrevoando o Peru nesse exato momento.
We've been able to confirm alignment here on the ground.
Confirmando o alinhamento aqui,
the SpaceX
o
mission
pessoal de
director
Houston lá
have
do
conferred and confirmed Dragon is in good alignment. We have additional tools available, giving us degrees.
O diretor da missão confirmando aí se está tudo disponível ali para fazer esse final approach. Your copy, Dragon. Puxa, que imagem lindíssima!
Right. So Dragon is now accelerating in for docking. So again,
accelerating for docking. A Dragon então já começando a aceleração para fazer o docking.
Visiting vehicle officer, other support personnel confirmed Dragon was in good alignment, and that video from the ground site, that's the one you were just seeing on the left. So Dragon's now continuing in towards docking. We've departed waypoint 2. We're only 17.5 meters away. We confirmed good alignment, and we've got additional views now trained on Dragon, giving additional situational awareness. And we're continuing to get those updates from the navigational equipment on board Dragon. The LiDAR's giving real-time range rate. We're getting real-time degrees, and that's also being fed to the crew in real time. They don't have that video, but they do have all that additional data that's able to give them enough data to make decisions for board if they need to. So
então eles têm todos os dados importantes para fazer a tomada de decisão para o approach que eles precisarem, né? As comunicações foram restabelecidas, acho que o vídeo foi consertado, era uma janela de 2 horas, eles foram super rápidos lá.
Just under 3 minutes away from docking.
3 minutes away from docking? 3 minutos? 3 minutos away from docking, my God.
And you can see the soft capture ring on the docking mechanisms extended. It's got 3 of those slightly triangular looking shapes, and those are the pedals
então,
that are going to be used to guide it into the passive mechanism on the station side.
On the station
After that
side,
makes the initial attachment, that docking ring is going to retract, bring it in, and then it's going to be able to make a hard mate, engaging 12 hooks to give the
são 12 acoplamentos ao redor da Endeavour para fazer esse tipo 12 buraquinhos, né? Para fazer esse acoplamento na Endeavour e o hatch, abrindo o hatch e acoplando as duas naves,
just giving
né?
direction to the crew on board Dragon not to make any manual control decisions or movements, so everything gets handled by the flight computer from that point in.
A 6 metros da SS, a gente não vai ouvir mais nada lá da tripulação. Vai cortar aí a comunicação a alguns metros de distância. Ah lá, está na correta altitude, confirmando. Puxa, que lindo isso.
Six meters in closing.
6 meters in closing. 6 metros. 6 metros. Estamos chegando.
The International Docking Adapter number 3 in view on the lower right there.
5 meters.
5 meters. 5 metros e approaching.
Under 5 meters to go. Still seeing good alignment.
Fazendo alinhamento final. 5 metros de distância. É do ladinho, do ladinho. Tá chegando,
Under
gente.
3 meters.
3 metros.
Soft docking ring on Dragon on top there. International docking adapter on the right.
Copies, 2 meters.
2 meters. 2 metros. E agora vai, agora vai, agora vai.
2 meters. We heard chop call, the crew hands off point.
2 meters. 1 metro. Vai fazer o acoplamento. Vai fazer o acoplamento. Nesse momento, nesse momento, nesse momento, nesse momento.
1 meter to go.
1 meter to go.
Dragon, SpaceX, on the big loop, contact, soft capture complete, attenuation in progress.
SpaceX Endeavor.
Continuation in progress. Já está fazendo... Tá meio metro de distância ali. Agora é para fazer o acoplamento final.
All right, so with that contact and capture coming at 7:29 a.m. Central Time, 5:29 a.m. Eastern, that's 12:29 UTC.
Tá fazendo os horários já, aqui são 9h32 da manhã de 9 de abril de 2022 no Brasil.
So with that,
estamos sobrevoando agora o Oceano
the soft
Atlântico.
capture ring is now going to begin to retract. After that is completed, we'll be able to start
Saiu do Peru, está sobrevoando aqui o Oceano Atlântico.
Soft capture ring
então já está pelo lado de cá, né? Está pelo lado de cá, já está aqui, ó, o Oceano Atlântico aqui.
So we're now going to see Dragon inch a little bit closer to that docking adapter until it essentially performs a sealed connection. Then we'll be able to engage 12 hooks that form the hard capture function on board Dragon. 6 of those are actually engaged during the launch and on the way into orbit. They hold the nose cone, which you can see opened off to the right there. They hold that in place, and then they're opened up once we're on orbit to deploy the nose cone. But 12 of those are now going to engage after the soft capture ring has retracted. Once those 12 are engaged, we'll have a hard mate. Then we can
as 12 conexões vão afixar ali na ISS.
Through station systems,
para fazer
and then we'll be able to get the docking complete call, and then it's on to some of the post-docking operations. So for the crew inside Dragon, they'll be getting out of their suits, doing some basic cabin configuration as they get ready to open hatch on their side. That'll be the last hatch to open. Meanwhile, on the station side, Tom Marshburn and the Expedition 67 crew will start outfitting what's called the A-Pass hatch. That's the hatch on the station side. It's got a small valve that Marshburn's going to open up to begin to flow atmosphere to the space between the Dragon and the station hatches. Right now, it's still exposed to vacuum. But as soon as we're able to pull Dragon in and engage those hooks, that will become a sealed space.
Então ele faz aí porque agora nós temos vácuo ali entre a Dragon e a ISS. Então tem que colocar afixar os 12 conexões para fazer essa adequação atmosférica, né? Para retirar o vácuo ali dentro
just to do leak checks and let thermals equalize to make sure that we're actually measuring pressure and how much atmosphere is in there, not just thermal fluctuations. And so once we get that up to pretty much the same ambient pressure as
então já está lá, docking, agora já entrou. Maravilha,
it'll be over to the Dragon crew to open the hatch into Crew Dragon Endeavor. So still waiting for that soft capture ring to retract. This might be a bit of deja vu for Dragon Commander Mike L.A. As this is actually the second time in his spaceflight career that he's docked to the space station on a spacecraft named Endeavor. He flew on Shuttle Endeavor back on STS-113.
Ele navegou também numa nave chamada Endeavor
to deliver the Expedition 6 crew. So Thank you to our resident
2002
space flight
e aí
encyclopedia for
essa
that
agora a
tidbit.
nave aqui chama Endeavour também. Então, déjà vu para o Michael Lopes Alegria.
So for now, the soft capture rings
Pronto,
still
tirei bastante foto
retracting,
aqui já.
and once
Agora é só
that's
foto com os
completed,
astronautas quando
we'll be
entrarem
able
agora.
to
Vamos acompanhar
begin
agora então
connecting
o
those hooks.
acoplamento aí.
Those are going to hold it in place. We'll get those umbilicals, and then we'll be able to start stepping into hatch operations.
Dragon, SpaceX on the big loop, ring retraction complete. Docking sequence is holding for MCS reconfiguration.
A sequência de docking, ok.
SpaceX, Endeavour, copy all.
Endeavour, copy.
And that soft capture ring has retracted. As you heard, we're going to now stand by for a moment for MCS reconfigure. That's the motion control system on board station. For
Então,
the
sistema de controle da missão
we had handed over to the
está sendo
thrusters on the Russian segment for
reconfigurado ali para
propulsive
fazer esse
attitude control.
alinhamento final.
Now that the soft capture is completed, we're going to hand back over to the gyroscopes, the large gyroscopes on the US segment that are just run electronically to provide non-propulsive attitude control to the station. And then once that handover is complete, we'll start engaging those 12 hooks, holding Dragon in place, and then getting closer to that docking complete call. But if you're just joining the docking, that initial contact and capture did take place just about 5 minutes ago at 7:29 a.m. Central, 5:29 a.m. Pacific. 12:29 GMT, as both the station and Dragon were flying 258 statute miles over the Atlantic, connecting the spacecraft to the station, carrying the first all-private astronaut mission to the orbiting lab.
MCS is configured. Proceeding with hook driving.
Station copies.
And we now have the motion control system on the station reconfigured back in attitude control being done by the US gyroscopes, and they're now going to start engaging those 12 hooks on the Dragon capsule. All right, we've got confirmation that the hooks have started to drive. And so there's 12 total. We're going to do them in two groups of 6. So the first set of 6 driving now. In this split screen view, you've got the newly arrived Dragon Endeavour on the left. On the right there is NASA astronaut and current Expedition 67 Commander Tom Marshburn. He's on the timeline to take the lead in the vestibule pressurization operation. So he's going to be moving into the pressurized mating adapter in the space-facing side of Node 2 and working on the station side hatch, opening up a valve to start to flow atmosphere from station into that soon-to-be sealed pressurized area between the 2 hatches. And again, we expect hatch opening to take place roughly 2 hours. Should be a little bit less than 2 hours following the docking. So with that docking happening right around 7:30 Central, it'll probably be sometime in the 9 o'clock hour before we get the hatches open. For the crew on board, they're going to remain in their seats throughout this as we continue to drive the hooks. And then once those hooks are driven and docking is complete, we will be able to have them get out of the suits. That'll be one of the first items for them. They'll also begin to just reconfigure the cabin. And we just got confirmation 6 of those hooks are engaged. So the first set is good. And then the second set is now driving. And again, first set of hooks are in place. Second set of 6 hooks are now driving.
6 hooks estão afixados já de 12.
The umbilicals deployed, we'll have docking complete. And then the crew will be able to
sistema
get out of
umbilical
their
de
suits
suporte
on board
para
of
fazer o
Dragon.
dock comprido
They'll
precisa
start to reconfigure the
afixar
cabin.
os
One of the
12
first things that they'll do
os 12
once we
hooks.
get hatches
São buracos
open
ali,
is to remove what's called a LiO canister. It's lithium hydroxide. That's the system used on board of Dragon to scrub CO2 from the air. They just remove it and put a seal over it, as they've got a couple of essentially cartridges that get used while Dragon's in free flight, and as they're going to be integrating Dragon's atmosphere with the rest of station, they'll take that out, and then they'll be able to rely on the station atmospheric revitalization systems, scrubbing CO2, providing oxygen for the duration of their docked visit. Once they get on board, and I'll address this a few times, we usually get asked, where's everybody going to sleep? As we now have 11 people on board the space station. For the AX-1 crew, they're going to be split up in a couple of different areas. One will sleep inside of Crew Dragon Endeavor. One will set up a temporary sleep location in the Quest airlock. And then we'll have 2 spots inside of the European Columbus module. One in the newly fabricated Casa. It's essentially a new crew quarters set up there. The roughly closet-sized private booths that we have on board the station, with 4 over in Node 2.
Falou aí do módulo Columbus europeu, eu não peguei exatamente o que é. Ó, foto linda essa aí, hein?
And there's the call. Hard capture is complete. So all 12 hooks engaged and in place. Next up are some umbilicals, but Dragon now firmly attached to the space station. We see the visors come up on the crew inside, and we can start now stepping into some of the operations to get those hatches open and get these AX-1 astronauts on board the station. So with that, I'm going to send it over to the team in Hawthorne. Andy, Trisha, congratulations on docking the first private astronaut mission to station. Why don't you take us a little bit for the rest of the way?
Trisha, obrigado aí
thank you, Dan. Right back
pela cobertura dessa primeira missão privada internacional. Obrigado, Andy.
We did dock about an hour later than scheduled, but I always like to think of it as a silver lining. We were able to get involved daytime during the dock, so absolutely gorgeous views of Dragon's approach and contact with the International Space Station. And as Dan had mentioned, and we heard over the nets, hard capture is complete. We are waiting for umbilicals to be plugged in and installed, but Dragon is now firmly secured to the International Space Station, so docking procedures can continue, and eventually the crew will make their way out of Dragon and onto the International Space Station.
Oh my
tripulação
gosh,
sair
it's
da
just
Dragon e entrar na
incredibly
SS.
exciting to
Oh my
watch
God,
that. I mean,
aí a
watching
Trisha
the
tá
whole
dizendo.
process of Dragon approaching the docking
Muito,
adapter,
muito
and then,
incredible, exciting to
completing
watch
that
this.
dock was just, I mean, personally
todo o
for me, I
processo aí
was
de
very,
docking,
very
né?
excited. So I can only imagine
I
what
cannot
the
imagine
crew
what,
is feeling
my
like right
dear.
now. This is, like setting off the rest of the 8 days that they're going to have on orbit.
Vão passar 8 dias em órbita agora, né?
Time,
Imaginar aí a alegria dos astronautas.
Yeah, and absolutely
chegando
an
lá. Vamos
incredible
descansar
effort
pouquinho
from
da missão,
the
né?
teams to troubleshoot that issue and get things going. That is really what the joint operations and
isso
space
que as
is about. You
operações,
had mentioned it earlier. Space is not easy, but it takes a lot of very
né?
dedicated, talented,
It's all
smart,
about.
hardworking
It's not
folks
easy,
to make sure these things are done safely. So, with the crew now one step closer to getting on board the International Space Station and starting all of the cool science that I'm sure they're excited to do.
Muita pesquisa científica
on the big loop,
vai ser feita lá
docking
também.
sequence complete.
Docking
I hope you
sequence
enjoyed
complete.
the extra half orbit in Dragon, or at least found it memorable. Crew Dragon Endeavor and MLA, welcome back. Aton, Larry, Mark, welcome to the International Space Station.
Welcome to the International Space Station, a tripulação. Maravilha! Vai abrir o hatch agora. Larry, Mark, Aton, welcome to the International Space Station.
Happy all. We're happy to
Michael.
be here, even though we're a bit late, and looking forward to the next chapter. Thanks for all the great work.
Thanks for all the great work. O Michael Lopes Alegria está dizendo aí, que show de bola, comandante. SpaceX, thank you for all the great work.
At this time, ground will be enabling power and comm connections. You are go to doff suits.
Sejam bem-vindos. Podem colocar os trajes espaciais. Vamos habilitar aqui a energia para fazer o hatch aqui. Pode colocar a roupa. Pode colocar a roupa espacial. Habilitar, né? Pode habilitar a roupa espacial. Spacesuits vão se ajustar para entrar aí sair da Endeavour e adentrar a ISS. Vai ter a cerimônia de comemoração, hein? Welcome! Eles estão comunicando entre si, a SS já comunicando ali com a Dragon, né? This historic mission. We're looking forward to this historic mission. Thanks for all the great work. Nós estamos já nos preparando para entrar na ISS com a tripulação que já está lá.
So some final exchanges as the crew on board Capsule Endeavour begin to doff or take off their spacesuits. In the past, they've actually just left.
Dragon, SpaceX on Dragon to ground. No response required. Cameras are external.
In the past, I think what we've seen is the suits are just kind of left in the seats, strapped in, and they're stored in the Dragon. But it is quite a funny scene to see the astronauts kind of floating around, gathering their belongings, and there's like these 4 mannequins sitting in the seats. But they're getting ready. There are a couple more operations that needs to happen before we can open both of the hatches. So as Dan was mentioning, the APAS hatch on the International Space Station side will open first. Prior to that, we're going to fill the vestibule, which is the space between the 2 hatches. We're going to fill that with air and pressure to make sure that it is equalized on both sides. Then we'll open the APAS hatch. Then the Dragon hatch will open, and then the crews can meet.
Então ele está dizendo aqui como vai ser o acoplamento, né? Primeiro ele pressuriza com ar ali, pressuriza o ambiente entre a Dragon e é pressurizado o ambiente entre a Dragon e a ISS. É pressurizado. E aí abre-se o hatch da ISS, é o primeiro a ser aberto. Depois abre-se o hatch da Dragon e aí os astronautas penetram aqui no ambiente. Ele está dizendo que no passado os trajes espaciais eram deixados na nave, né? Na Dragon. E era até engraçado você ver ali os 4 trajes ali, sem ninguém ali, né? Dentro ali do sistema de controle da nave. E agora não, parece que eles entram com o traje todo e fazem toda a retirada aqui dentro do espaço, ou aqui entre, ou na própria ISS, que eles retiram o traje. Tá interessante a gente ver. Vamos acompanhar aqui ao vivo, né?
So again, beginning the initial steps for hatch open.
Fazendo os passos iniciais para abrir o hatch da ISS, que é o primeiro a ser aberto. Abrir a porta, né?
Outside of the small hiccup with video, smooth ride up to the International Space Station.
Absolutely. The crew has certainly been on a long journey, starting bright and early yesterday, April 8th.
É uma longa jornada, né? Começou ontem, meio-dia 17, hoje é 9h49. Uma longa jornada aí, ó.
Launch at 8:17 a.m. Eastern and 11:17 a.m. Pacific on April 8th.
22 horas de viagem da Terra até chegar a acoplar na ISS a Endeavour,
now they're
né?
beginning hatch operations. It's just very exciting to see.
Já completamos aí o docking sequence e agora começando a abrir as hatch operations. O primeiro hatch, a porta a ser aberta, é da ISS.
Actually, we're coming up on 23 or 24 hours inside the capsule. On board, they were
22 horas a bordo aí da cápsula, os astronautas estão ansiosos aí para chegar na ISS, né?
We did an onboard live event earlier
this morning. A couple of meals.
So I'm sure the crew is super excited
uma troca de sono ali, a crew. Eles já fizeram algumas comunicações conosco aqui com Houston, né?
And this here is a great view of Dragon.
Uma visão linda aqui da Dragon.
SpaceX Endeavour on
Axiom, olha o Axiom ali, bem bonito ali ao ladinho.
Dragon, SpaceX, on the cabin mic, we have you 5x5. Glad to hear you loud and clear again.
Lots of exciting things happening with that.
Yeah, same here. Do you want me to do
muitas questões aí excitantes acontecendo nesse exato momento.
It's a suit issue. That's not gospel, but I think we're good. Oh, I understand. Yeah, mic, comm check on the big loop would be good. Cabin mic on the big loop.
Endeavor on the big loop. Cabin mic check.
Endeavor on the big loop.
Endeavor, SpaceX on the big loop. Cabin mic check 5x5.
Copy all. Thanks, Jake.
Estão acoplados aí já.
So we are going through some checks. This is a view of Dragon docked at the zenith or space-facing port. So the hatch is actually pointing down towards Earth, and the crew is inside, again, doffing their spacesuits or taking off their spacesuits, getting ready to enter the International Space Station here shortly. For now, we're going to send it back over to Dan at Johnson Space Center in Houston.
O Dan está no Johnson Space Center em Houston. É o Dan que está em Houston, então, confirmando.
And ready to get into hatch ops. So,
estão prontos aí para entrar no hatch, fazer depois a retirada do traje espacial.
The station's A-pass hatch, it's just the hatch on the station side, into what's known as the vestibule. That's just that small space that before docking is just exposed to vacuum, but now with Dragon firmly attached, we've got a tight seal, and we're going to start pressurizing that section. So we're going to do it.
Já começaram a pressurizar
Station Commander Tom Marshburn is
a
going to be
conexão
primed for
entre
this.
A Dragon e a ISS já está sendo pressurizada com ar. Aí, galera, uma imagem aí da ISS.
Here's a live view. First, he's working to open up.
Está trabalhando para abrir o hatch da ISS aí, o astronauta
into the
russo.
pressurized mating adapter. This is closed during the docking operations.
Está abrindo aí o hatch, aí, ó. Abriu o hatch aí, show de bola!
And with that, Tom Marshburn has that PMA hatch open. So you can see now inside the pressurized mating adapter, we do use it for storage.
Abriu aí a porta da
ISS,
o nosso colega russo.
But you can see the cover to the A-pass hatch now in view. So Marshburn's going to go there. He's going to open a small valve. It's going to start flowing atmosphere from the station into the vestibule. We're going to slowly pressurize that. We're going to use sensors on the Dragon hatch to measure temperature and pressure inside of the vestibule as that happens.
Os sensores da Dragon agora estão medindo aqui temperatura, pressão no lado deles para ver se eles podem abrir a porta aqui já.
Thanks, Tom.
And so Marshburn just radioing down the overhead hatch, so the hatch into the pressurized mating adapter is opened. He's grabbed a tablet with his procedures on, and he's going to now start stepping through the vestibule pressurization. So he's going to open a small equalization valve, and that's going to start flowing air from station into that vestibule. We're going to give it some time for those hatch seals inside to relax.
Então tem que ter um tempo ali para fazer toda a selagem aqui desse acoplamento, né? O astronauta russo está fazendo os ajustes ali para que não tenha nenhuma perda de pressurização aqui para o espaço aqui também, né? Importante de segurança aqui também da ISS para recepcionar os astronautas aqui agora.
And Dragon, they're all going to be at a very similar pressure. We can wait for pressures to equalize. So we can just kind of pause and wait. But at this point,
então vamos entrar aqui, vai dar vai no horário certinho, ó. Eles conseguiram resolver o problema do vídeo. Às 10h30 mais ou menos é a cerimônia de recepção dos astronautas. Olha, um outro colega chegou aí.
Will take about 10 minutes to start the pressurization, and then
10
after
minutos
that
para
we're going to
começar a
do a leak check
pressurização.
that can go anywhere from 15 minutes. A quick view of Raja Chari, who's doing our primary Dragon monitoring there. But after we get the vestibule pressurized, we'll go into a leak check, where they just again
tem que fazer leak check, né? É ensaio de vazamento para ver se tem algum vazamento ali entre as conexões, para estabilizar a condição de pressão e temperatura entre as duas espaçonaves.
Dragon, SpaceX on Dragon to ground, no response required. ISS crew are stepping into vestibule pressurization imminently. You are free to follow along with telemetry in 4.400 section 4 if you'd like.
Tá dando uma autorização para Endeavour Dragon fazer o ajuste do sistema de telemetria e pressurização para a abertura final da porta.
Equalization valve is open for 75 seconds, now closed at GMT 12:55.
12:55, copy. We will take care of the leak check from the ground, give you a heads up here in just a little bit.
Vou fazer o leak check agora. Ensaio de vazamento ali. Estamos aí a poucos minutos aí de recepcionar os astronautas na ISS. Sabadinho aqui em Chapecó. Eu tô meio cansadinho aqui, acordei cedo. Já estamos indo para 1h46 aí de cobertura desse momento histórico aí para a humanidade. Daqui a pouco a gente vai encerrar a live com mais uns 20 minutinhos, meia hora. A hora que os astronautas finalmente entrarem lá e terem a cerimônia de comemoração, né?
And so as we just heard the Dragon crew get told, the vestibule pressurization is beginning. Again, that's done on the station side. Again, this is Mission Control Houston. So Dragon currently docked to the International Space Station. They linked up with the space-facing port on Node 2, the Harmony module, just about 30 minutes ago, docking at 7:29 a.m. Central, 5:29 a.m. Pacific, while the station and Dragon were flying just 258 statute miles over the Atlantic Ocean. We did hang out at waypoint 2 just about 20 minutes away while we were troubleshooting a video issue, getting it over to the station crew for monitoring, but we were able to effect a workaround. Teams on the ground confirming that Dragon was in the proper alignment, proper attitude, and then the capsule was able to get the go for final approach and then link up. So with the docking complete, Dragon firmly attached, we're into hatch ops. So Tom Marshburn has started the pressurization of the vestibule, that space between the two hatches, and we're going to continue that and then execute a leak check, which can take anywhere from 15 minutes up to an hour, just depending on what kind of readings we start getting back. We're going to be using sensors on the Dragon hatch for tracking pressure, temperature, everything inside that vestibule. Meanwhile, the crew on board Dragon is able to now get out of their suits that they were wearing for that dynamic phase of rendezvous and docking. And then once they're out of there, they can monitor the hatch ops from their side. And then once everything is done with the station crew getting the vestibule pressurized, they'll open up the station side hatch first, and then it'll be over to the AX-1 crew to open the hatch on Dragon. And then after we get the hatches open, the Expedition 67 crew will be able to welcome them on board, and we will have a welcome ceremony sometime after hatch open. Could take as long as 30 minutes, as there are a couple of steps they have to take just after we get the hatches open, just to get Dragon configured for docked operations, including taking some steps just to start integrating Dragon's cabin atmosphere with that on board the space station. And then we'll get the entire Expedition 67 crew, all 7 of them, along with the recently arrived AX-1 astronauts all together, and have a special ceremony to welcome the first private astronaut mission to the space station. We docked about 45 minutes behind schedule per the original timeline, so we are expecting pretty much everything else to shift with that. But we'll continue to give you updates as we get through hatch operations and get ready to bring the crew on board.
Então, o Dan está passando as informações aí, todas as informações que a gente vivenciou aí durante a live, né? Os troubleshootings com o vídeo, né? Teve um atraso aí para fazer o docking. Já se conectaram com a ISS, os astronautas fazendo aí, russos na parte da ISS, fazendo os ajustes finais de telemetria aí, medição leak check de vazamento, para poder fazer a abertura do hatch aqui da Dragon, né? Ajustar toda a pressão e temperatura para retirar o vácuo que tinha entre as duas espaçonaves. São 12, então, os hooks que foram afixados aí, juntando aí a Dragon. E aí os astronautas, então, que estavam no traje espacial para fazer todo o rendezvous, que é a viagem de 22 horas aí da Terra até aqui a ISS, que fica a 400 quilômetros aí de altitude, né? Está sobrevoando agora o Oceano Atlântico. Passamos agora pelo Peru, Brasil, Oceano Atlântico. Passamos pertinho, em cima da gente aqui, em cima do Brasil, agora estamos no Oceano Atlântico. E aí vão fazer, depois do rendezvous com os trajes espaciais, vão retirar os trajes espaciais, fazer adaptação de pressurização, talvez vão fazer isso, não sei se é dentro da Dragon ou aqui dentro da ISS já, retirar os trajes, fazer os ajustes para trocar o ambiente, né? Para entrar num novo ambiente aqui de temperatura e pressurização. Vou fazer todos os checks, né? Todos os ajustes finais de adequação, né, da quarentena de adequação aí deles aí num novo ambiente aí. E meia hora, uma cerimônia de comemoração para receber os astronautas na ISS.
Yes, station and Endeavour wanted to give everyone a heads up the way the rest of the day is going to look here, with docking occurring 45 minutes late. The intention here is the PAO event and the subsequent safety briefing will slide to the right by 45 minutes, which will carry over to the rest of the day. However, we'll let you guys flex and manage. If you're able to make up some time, we are good with that. Otherwise, we'll hang in with you as the timeline would be extended a little bit. How copy?
Tá dizendo que a timeline estendeu um pouquinho, 45 minutos aí, teve um atraso aí da timeline estabelecida, então a cerimônia de comemoração de recepção dos astronautas estava agendada para as 10h30, vai atrasar um pouquinho aí, né? Teve uns 45 minutos de atraso, tem uma astronauta aí se aproximando aí agora, olha só.
From Endeavour for awareness, if station is rogering up on those calls, we are not hearing them.
Passando o batom aí para a cerimônia de recepção dos astronautas aí, ó. Beauty aboard, beleza a bordo aí da ISS.
Space to Ground 3 earlier, so they are aware, so we're good and in sync. But thanks for the heads up.
Okay, you got it.
LA, we've got you loud and clear, and we're following along on Space Ground 2, Big Loop.
Okay, Kayla, thanks.
And we just heard an update called up to the crew from the Capcom Scotts Gady here in Houston. As mentioned, docking did take place about 45 minutes after the initially intended time, as we did spend extra time at waypoint 2, just 20 meters away from station, to troubleshoot a video issue.
Para consertar aí problema de acesso de vídeos centrais lá.
We were able to come up with a workaround, teams on the ground able to confirm Dragon attitude positioning, all within normal bounds.
A Dragon,
they did that final
altitude da Dragon, posição, velocidade, para refazer aí o docking nas órbitas espaciais corretas, nesse atraso de consertar os vídeos ali, né? Então teve atraso de 45 minutos, que foi o atraso para acerto desses sistemas aí.
So the vestibule pressurization is underway. A small relief valve has been opened on the station side to flow atmosphere into that space between the Dragon and station hatches.
Então uma válvula foi aberta já entre as duas espaçonaves para fazer a pressurização agora.
And then we're gonna, after it gets up to about ambient pressure with the rest of the station,
após a
we're
ambientação,
going to let thermal stabilize
e
and then
temperatura do
conduct
ambiente,
a leak check.
vai
Just to make sure
prosseguir
that
aí
we've
a
got a
abertura do
tight seal
hatch da
between the
Endeavour.
Dragon and the station. Before we start opening up the hatches, we're going to open the hatch on the station side first. It's called the APAS hatch. So the station crew will get that open, and then once we again confirm pressures are roughly equalized between station and Dragon, the Dragon crew will open up their hatch.
Então ainda não abriram o hatch nem da ISS, né? Eu tinha falado aqui anteriormente que tinha aberto, né? Na verdade foi uma porta anterior ao hatch, né? Estão fazendo as adaptações, o teste de vazamento, pressurização, ambientação térmica, até abrir o hatch primeiro da ISS e depois da Endeavour. Ainda não foi aberto as portas ainda.
Between the Dragon spacecraft and the space station, that allows them to have a hardline integration into station power and data. Now Dragon using the station systems to power its own hardware inside, not relying on those solar arrays or any batteries at this point, able to draw power from the station. Dragon is largely left in a powered down mode after the crew gets on board. A lot of its systems put into kind of a quiescent mode while docked, with the SpaceX teams routinely bringing them up during the dock mission just to do checkouts. But for now, they are hooked in to station power, to station data, and then once we get the hatches open, they'll take some steps to integrate the cabin atmosphere in Dragon with that on board the space station, able to rely on the regenerative capabilities of the space station, and then preserving the consumables on board Dragon, both the breathable oxygen and nitrogen, and also the carbon dioxide scrubbing. So those will get essentially taken out of their configs and will get brought back up online when it's time for Dragon to depart. And so at this point, the vestibule has been pressurized, and we're now going to start stepping through those leak checks. Those can take as short as about 15 minutes up to an hour. Just depends on how long it takes to reach
Entre 15 minutos a uma hora é o teste de vazamento, de pressurização e equalização térmica.
Again, using sensors on the Dragon hatch to actually perform this leak check. Then after we confirm a good leak check, we'll be able to get the go up to the station crew to open up the hatch on their side. And then it'll be over to the SpaceX team. There's usually about 30 minutes between those two hatches being opened, the APAS coming first, followed shortly after by the Dragon hatch. But things look quiet right now. The crew actually getting some time, the crew on board station, getting some time right now for their midday meal before they get ready to get the hatch open and welcome the AX-1 astronauts on board. Right after we get everyone on, we'll have the entire Expedition 67 crew join with the AX-1 astronauts and do a formal welcome ceremony welcoming the first fully private astronaut mission on board the space station. Following that, there's still a pretty busy day for the rest of the afternoon. The station commander, Tom Marshburn, will take the entire station crew, so all of our new astronauts as well as the Expedition 67 ones, and doing a safety briefing. This is routine for any crew members arriving at the space station, whether they're professional astronauts or on these new private astronaut missions. Marshburn, as the commander, has overall safety authority for the crew during the expedition on board, and he'll just go through essentially an orientation session.
Está dizendo que tem uma série de procedimentos de segurança aí para a hora que os astronautas entram no ISS, para fazer todas umas verificações aí, testes e procedimentos de segurança. São normais, são padrões aí para fazer esse briefing de recebimento. O briefing da missão, fazer verificar como foram todos os detalhes do rendezvous, da viagem até lá. E todo esse briefing é feito com um grande trabalho à tarde agora que o colega Dan está falando aqui do
showing them where they're going to be setting up for the duration.
Para receber os astronautas,
just starting to get them acquainted with their home for more than the next week while they're on board. I mentioned it earlier, but we do usually get asked pretty frequently, where's everyone going to sleep? As we do not have 11 crew quarters on board, but we have 11 crew members on the space station now. So for our recently arrived AX-1 crew, one of them is going to sleep inside.
Temos 11 astronautas na Space Station right now.
One of them is going to be over in the Quest airlock, where we stage spacewalks out of. We're not doing any spacewalks during this mission or anytime soon. No planned spacewalks. So one crew member will set up in there.
Parece que vai ter
and then two will be in the Columbus module. One in the newly installed CASA, the crew quarters. That's over in Columbus, and then another one just setting up what we typically refer to as a camp out configuration, also in Columbus. So they'll be spread out throughout the station for their time on board.
Então essa adaptação
again, right now, the vestibule has
de entrar a bordo da ISS tem toda uma adaptação de segurança e briefing, né?
A view up towards the docking port.
Então as vestimentas foram pressurizadas aí dos astronautas, estão terminando aí o leak test, teste de vazamento, e vão passar aqui para a ISS hatch side para eles fazerem a abertura do hatch.
And again, pretty soon after we get through this leak check, the crew on board will get the go to begin opening that hatch. We'll get the station side open first, followed shortly thereafter by the hatch on board Dragon. And then we'll be able to get the AX-1 crew inside and go through a welcome ceremony to welcome these first private astronaut mission crew members on board the station. We'll have a couple of participants here on the ground able to talk to the crew, and then their commander Mike LA will go through a short ceremony, and then they'll be off and running for the AX-1 mission. They've already got a number of activities, both just kind of getting themselves set up, but already stepping into some of their science, their outreach activities immediately on this day today. The entire crew, so everybody on board, is scheduled to go to sleep at a little bit later than the normal time, about 4:30 Central here in Houston. We do keep all of the crew on essentially the same sleep schedule whenever possible, just so you don't have, obviously, people moving around and turning lights on while you're trying to sleep in low Earth orbit. They typically follow a schedule for us here in the U.S. where they're waking up in the middle of the night for us. In fact, their wake-up time tomorrow will be about 1 a.m. here in Houston, and then they immediately get into a lot of their operations. Since tomorrow is Sunday, for most of the Expedition 67 crew, it's going to be a relatively light day, as the weekends are typically an off day for them. They'll have some cleaning tasks, which get scheduled on the weekend. Each of the crew members spending about 2 hours exercising, even on their off days, and that's just to help combat the negative effects on the human body of that extended period of time.
Tá falando aqui então pouco do dia a dia da ISS. Amanhã é um dia de é domingo, né? Então também é dia de descanso, limpeza ali na ISS. E alguns fazem algumas atividades físicas para retirar os efeitos negativos da exposição do corpo na ausência de gravidade, né? Então, mesmo nos tempos de folga, eles fazem atividades físicas, né? Aí amanhã, domingo, então, os 4 membros aqui da AXIOM-1 vai começar aí as atividades de pesquisa deles aí, junto com a galera da ISS.
And then they're just getting a refresher now that they're up on board around the real hardware, around the real settings that they would have to make that response. So for right now, we're just continuing to follow. Again, they're doing leak checks right now in the vestibule. That's that space between the two hatches, the hatch on station and the hatch on Dragon. We've pressurized it, opening up the valve and introducing atmosphere from the station into that small space.
Está introduzindo a atmosfera da estação espacial. Da estação espacial naquele pequeno ambiente entre a Endeavour, Dragon e a ISS.
Followed soon after by the hatch on Dragon.
Está sendo agora, já foi pressurizado com a atmosfera da ISS e agora está fazendo um ensaio de vazamento. Opa, tem um comentário aqui. Bom dia, meu amigo estratosférico Wilker, é o Marcel. Grande Marcel, meu parceiro, meu amigo, meu irmão. Vivemos juntos lá no Rio de Janeiro um tempo, né Marcel? E tá lá no Espírito Santo agora, e eu aqui em Santa Catarina, mas wonderful times, vivemos together lá no Rio de Janeiro, né, amigo? Com o Vitinho, querido Vitinho, o Marcão, o Gauchão, momentos legais aí na nossa formação. Estudamos muita ciência, hein? Você lá era engenheiro de produção, mas lia demais, né? Lia muito, eu ficava, puxa, mas tem que estudar, tem que ler tanto em engenharia de produção. Lia muito lá e eu ficava nas minhas teorias eletromagnéticas, lembra? Estudando aí as equações de Maxwell, eu ficava de cabelo em pé, né? A gente ia para a praia, ia com os livros debaixo do braço, estendia lá os guarda-sol, ficava com o livro debaixo do braço, estudando teoria eletromagnética antes de entrar no mar ali, no Rio de Janeiro. Lembra disso? Eita lá, hein? Você queria estar lá Puxa vida, se não queria. Vou contar aqui agora ao vivo meus planejamentos, hein, Marcel? Aproveitando tua pergunta aí. Meus planejamentos é o seguinte: você sabe mais do que ninguém, meu amigo, meu irmão, que eu morro de medo de avião, né? Trabalhei na Embraer, inclusive, uma das primeiras empresas que eu trabalhei. Deixa eu silenciar a NASA aqui para eu comentar um pouquinho aqui, conversar um pouquinho com o Marcel. Silenciei a NASA. Eu tenho medo de avião, né? Teve um acidente lá, sobrevoando Guarulhos, uma turbina explodiu do meu lado, pegou fogo, foi um quiprocó lá. Desde então eu tenho um pouquinho de medo de voar, tá? Tenho um pouquinho de medo de voar. Mas eu estou planejando ir para o Kennedy Space Center em 2023. 2023 é meu planejamento, 2024, desculpa, que é a primeira missão tripulada a pousar na Lua, da missão Artemis. Em 2023 vai ser lançada lá do Kennedy Space Center. Nós temos lá a Cláudia do Vitinho, lembra? Então a Cláudia mora agora com os dois filhos lá, o Zé Wilker e o João Pedro, mora na Flórida, do ladinho do Kennedy Space Center. Então já tem lugar para ficar. Já economiza a minha missão, a missão Wilker. Já vou ficar na Flórida e quero assistir ao vivo esse negócio aí, ó, ao vivo do Kennedy Space Center, quero assistir lá e ver em 2024, se Deus quiser, Deus permita que eu perca meu medo. Não sei se eu vou de avião, não. Eu estou planejando ir de navio. De repente, pego uma semana aqui, navio, e contorno a nossa costa e chego lá na Flórida, tá? Quem sabe, hein? Lógico que eu queria estar lá, e acho que eu vou estar lá em 2024, Deus permitindo, viu? Verdade! Nossa amizade é eterna, com certeza. Um forte abraço aí, querido Marcelzão. Beijo no coração. Maria Antonieta, que eu digo, Maria Antonieta, nossa professora na UFRJ, nossa professora querida do Instituto de Física, ela ficava de cabelo em pé também com nossos experimentos científicos lá no laboratório didático do Instituto de Física. Ei, maravilha, lembra disso, Marcel? Coisa linda. Aí, memórias boas aí. Eu já estive, que legal, hein? O Marcel já esteve lá no Kennedy Space Center, então. Que legal, muito legal, joia, né? Conta para nós como é que foi essa experiência, o que você viu lá, o que tem de legal, viu alguma coisa da Apollo, das missões Apollo, tirou muita foto, comprou coisas. Eu, se for lá, eu sou muito consumidor, vou querer trazer, até traje espacial, vou querer trazer de lá. Beleza, vamos habilitar aqui o áudio da NASA aqui, enquanto a gente conversa também.
As mentioned, we ended up docking
Galera,
about 45
podem
minutes later than
comentar aí
originally
também.
intended.
Vamos interagir aqui nesse momento
Our entire schedule
interessante
now
aqui.
shifting
Os
about
astronautas estão
45
quase
minutes
entrando
later.
na SS, primeira
We'd
missão
originally
privada
intended to get the
aí para o
hatches open
espaço. Show
at
de
the
bola,
bottom
um
of the
momento
hour
histórico
this
aí para a
hour,
nova
about 8:30
economia
Central.
da exploração
Now
espacial
looking at
mundial,
getting those
tornar a
hatches
estação
open at about
espacial internacional
9:15
um
or
ambiente
so,
comercial
just
com
depending on
mais
how quickly
exploração
we're able
de
to get through
investimentos
these leak
privados.
checks,
É isso que é o interesse
and
da
then start
NASA
to
e a
get the
NASA
hatches
focar
open.
na
First the one on
Artemis, que é a
station
missão
side,
para a Lua,
and then
e
the
um
one
pezinho lá
over
para fazer
on
a
Dragon.
base e
And
futuramente
so
ir
we'll
para
be
Marte.
looking at about the 9 o'clock hour
Incrível lá,
for the
Space
hatches
Center,
to
o
get
Marcel está
open, and
dizendo.
after which
Grande
the
abraço, meu amigo,
AX-1
grande abraço meu, ó.
astronauts will make their way on
Love,
board,
love, love,
and
love
we'll do
forever,
a
my
formal
friend.
welcome ceremony with them and the entirety
O welcome
of the
ceremony daqui
Expedition
a pouco, hein?
67 crew.
Daqui a uma meia hora vai ter a cerimônia de recepção dos astronautas, dos 4 astronautas lá, o Michael Lopes Alegria, o Larry Connor, Ethan Stibb e o Mark Pathin. Os 4 astronautas vão ser recebidos lá pelos,
while we wait
11
for
astronautas
the
que estão a bordo
vestibule
da
leak checks
SS.
to be completed, taking us one step closer to hatch open.
One step closer to abertura da porta lá, pertinho aí do momento de entrar.
Which now
Já
attached to the
lembrei
space
bons
station,
tempos
can't
aqui
wait to
com
see
o
them on
Marcel
board.
aqui na UFRJ, estava lá na
Dragon,
UFRJ,
SpaceX
fundão
on
longe,
Dragon
lá
to ground for
pegava
cabin
2
configuration
ônibus para chegar
update.
lá no fundão, né? A gente morava em Vista Alegre e era bem distante da zona norte do Rio para chegar lá na Ilha do Galeão, onde tem aí a Ilha do Fundão, né? É o UFRJ. Momentos maravilhosos da minha vida de estudante, muita ciência, física, matemática que eu estudei. Daí a gente vê aí o meu interesse aqui por esses momentos tecnológicos científicos importantes para a humanidade. Né?
Copy all, Mike. That was perfectly vague, and I will leave it to you to configure the cabin.
While we're talking about that, in 4.400 section 3, let me know when you're ready.
Hey, I am ready for inventory. Go ahead.
We haven't touched any food since we last spoke. As far as water, we've taken that same bag out of location 9 and are continuing to drink bottles from it. Standby 1. Of the 6 bottles have been consumed. Just a question on that. How do you want to account for that? Do you want us to just finish all the bottles that we open and then put them back in the bag?
Hey, Mike. Yeah, I think that's going to be the cleanest way to do it. If you could finish any of the half-consumed bottles, and to be clear, these were coming from bag number what?
204.
Copy all. 6 consumed from bag 204.
That's affirmed. And then as far as the trash that is described in 3.2, we are just going to hand over the duffel from location 21 to the ISS crew, and it will have all of our waste in it, both trash and the comfort garments that we're wearing now.
Os detalhes aí técnicos entre Houston e
Mike. That sounds right.
ISS e a Endeavour para fazer o acoplamento final para os astronautas adentrarem a ISS.
Okay, thank you.
Station Houston on the big loop for Tom.
Station Houston on the big loop for Tom.
On the big loop for Tom.
Yeah, Tom, good news. We have passed the leak check, so at this point we can give you a go for your ingress Part 2 activities. You have a go in step 3.1.
Já tem go no passo 3. Já passou o teste de vazamento. Já estamos próximos aí da abertura do hatch.
Good copy. Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, too. So to summarize, we heard a lot of communication back and forth. So this first set of communications was between the core, Jake Bendo. Core stands for Crew Operation Resources Engineer, and folks on board the capsule Endeavour. So the core's job is to communicate with folks inside the Dragon capsule, and the second half of that communication was from between the Capcom, which stands for Capsule Communicator, to folks at the ISS. So I'm speaking to Tom Marshburn. And so we'll continue to hear that as we proceed towards hatch opening and, eventually the crews meeting each other and going through the welcome ceremony. But we did get confirmation that we did pass the vestibule leak check. And so on the APAS, on the International Space Station side, things are continuing to progress. And it sounds like the AXIOM-1 crew is working towards, getting the Dragon hatch open as well.
Yeah, good news there all the way around. Something interesting to note is their conversation or their back and forth on tracking things like stowage and consumables. You heard their conversation on how to track the water or the beverages that they were consuming and how best to manage that. That actually, speaks to a big part of life in low Earth orbit. Tracking these kinds of things beverage packets, where exactly they're stored, how they're stored are all extremely important in terms of management of life in low Earth orbit. They have to know these things so that they know how much what they need to send up on resupply missions, how much trash they generate, because that's trash management is a pretty big issue on orbit, and it's all part of a coordinated dance between all teams to keep life smooth while in orbit.
Para tornar a vida confortável, melhor qualidade de vida a bordo, eles estão verificando todos os sistemas aí de consumo, o que os astronautas estão trazendo, a produção de lixo, de garbage ali dentro da ISS é um assunto de extrema importância, né, para essa melhor qualidade de vida ali dos ambientes lá, né?
Working towards opening the A-Pass hatch, but you can see behind them in that corridor, there's tons of storage there, so really,
tem alguns equipamentos de armazenamento lá ao redor deles, né?
When you have a moment, we'd appreciate comm checks on the Big Loop.
E o Big Loop agora para a abertura do hatch final. A astronauta passando aí. O outro colega está ali dentro, ali perto ali da porta para fazer a abertura.
So as I was saying, there's here's an even better view of all of the storage that is being put in that corridor.
Endeavor on the Big Loop for comm check.
Endeavor, station has you loud and clear.
And Houston Endeavor on the Big Loop comm check.
We have you loud and clear as well, LA. Good contracts all around. Appreciate the help, guys.
SpaceX Endeavor on Dragon to ground for water.
SpaceX ready to copy on Dragon to ground.
Hey Jake, looking ahead at 4.400 now in section 5, we need a bottle of water to flush the toilet, so you can take that out of bag 203.
Dragon, SpaceX on the Big Loop. I think those calls have been coming in on the Big Loop, but copy bag 203 for final water bottle and waste system flush.
Waste System Flush. Então estão verificando os sistemas aí de armazenamento, de lixo, né?
Mike, no worries.
Não copiei exatamente o que estão sendo feito nesse Waste System aí. Ouvi falar aqui alguma coisa de banheiro, toalete.
We saw him earlier, but he's working on a tablet, and we heard the communications back and forth that
que mais de bonitinho. Astronauta ali de ponta cabeça ali, ó.
And really just following the flight operations and docking operations to make sure that everything has been done and checked off before we can really get into the A-Pass hatch opening and the Dragon hatch opening.
Yeah, absolutely. And you heard earlier that we did dock about 45 minutes behind schedule, which meant that the rest of the crew schedule for the day was pushed back by 45 minutes, or at least the next two events on the crew schedule. So that also speaks to a big part of station life, and that crew time is extremely valuable and tracked very, very closely, sometimes even down to the second. This is to make sure that the crew is able to focus on things like scientific research, exercise, getting enough sleep, and just maximizing the efficiency of their days.
Maximizar a eficiência aí do trabalho, fazer os exercícios, dormir, fazer toda a adaptação na SS antes de começar os 8 dias de trabalho, né? Os dias de órbita, né?
So, there are times to have some fun.
Terão tempos para ter pouco de fun, né? De alegria lá a bordo.
SpaceX on Dragon to ground or suit doffing.
Go ahead, Jake.
Hey Mike, we're seeing
legal, a imagem legal.
indications
Eu
that
aproveitei e tirei uma foto dessa
suit
imagem
has
aqui.
come
Muito legal.
undone from its umbilical. I want to confirm that the suit is dry or that otherwise this was intended.
Querendo saber se o spacesuit está seco ou não.
We're just confused on the timing, so we're connecting that one again. The other three are still connected, and we're going for the 1 hour.
Okay, Dragon, copy all. Sorry to play Big Brother, and as you were.
So we are in a short handover period, but we should get views back of the International Space Station. But right before the video had cut off, we did see Thomas Marshburn open up the APAS hatch, which is another significant milestone in the docking procedure. So
Thomas, o astronauta é o Thomas.
I believe he was working on
ele já abriu o hatch então da ISS, já avançamos aí, já abriu a porta da ISS, fazendo o ajuste de temperatura, pressão aí da atmosfera para abrir a porta da Dragon finalmente.
And then the hatch will remain open, and then we'll just wait on Dragon hatch to open, and the
Houston station on the big loop, the APAS hatch is open, no condensate in the vestibule.
ISS hatch open.
Good news. Thanks for the report, Kayla.
So yeah, things are continuing to go well. We'll wait for the Dragon hatch to open up next. It will be a few moments from now.
Yeah, you heard, several back and forth between all the teams involved in coordinating this, and making sure that everyone's timeline and the order of steps that they're going in and the procedures that they're executing are, everyone's in track with one another. Really highlights the importance of communication between all the teams.
Ressaltando a importância da interação e comunicação entre as equipes lá, tanto da ISS como da Dragon.
So after the docking target comes off, we will be affixing a hatch cover on the APAS hatch.
Eu vou ter que dar uma saída aqui, que eu recebi visitas aqui, aqui em casa. E eu vou ter que dar uma saidinha rápida e volto daqui a 2 minutinhos.
And this is something that the AX crew, especially the folks that haven't been to space before, are going to have to get used to. Kayla and Tom here seem to be very fluid in their movements, zipping around and doing what they need to. But we've heard before from previous astronauts that it can take a little bit of time to get used to movement and work in microgravity. So we'll see, how the AX crew performs when they eventually leave the Dragon and make their way to the ISS.
Absolutely. And as they continue to make headway into hatch operations, we'll take it back to Dan Hewitt over at JSC for an update.
Hey, thanks, Tricia and Andy. You guys nailed it. We got one of the hatches open, the APAS hatch. There's a couple of steps that the crew has to go through now. The first is, Andy said, we're removing that docking target. So it's kind of a cross mechanism that is sticking out. And so obviously you want to take that off, as otherwise that's going to impede your progress through the hatch. So they'll remove that, get the hatch stowed, and then they install a hatch cover just to provide a little bit of extra padding on the hatch just in case it gets bumped, protecting both the hatch hardware and the crew members. Then we're going to see them move up what's known as an IMV duct, an intramodular ventilation duct. If you can see that kind of large orange hose there, that is going to help and eventually is going to get dragged into the Dragon spacecraft to actually integrate its atmosphere with the rest of the station. So that's where we're able to provide essentially a positive flow, integrating Dragon with the rest of the station stack. So Dragon will be able to take advantage of station oxygen generation, carbon dioxide scrubbing, temperature control, everything, essentially just becoming almost another module while it's docked to the space station. So they'll drag that ducting in, get it ready, and then we'll step into hatch equalization. And so this is just making sure that the pressure on either side of the Dragon hatch.
Estão terminando ali ainda os sistemas de adequação.
As possible. We can have a little bit of variance. And once that's done, then it'll be time for the Dragon crew to open up the hatch on their side.
Para abrir o hatch, né? Então já vou dar uma escapada aqui ainda e já volto daqui a pouquinho.
Actually, they can see through a small window in the Dragon hatch and look at everything that Tom Marshburn and Caleb Barron are doing here inside the pressurized mating adapter. So you can see them storing that stuff. We're going to get the cover over the APAS hatch next, and then just get closer to that hatch opening. Again, we were about 45 minutes behind schedule for docking. We were expecting the hatch on Dragon to be open just about 10 minutes ago. So right now our timeline puts us at approximately 9:15 or so central. We could be moving that up if the crews are able to get through the steps quickly before we get that Dragon hatch open. And then after that's opened, the AX-1 astronauts will be able to move through. They'll come down through the top hatch, the space-facing side of the Harmony module, make their way into Node 2, where we'll then get everybody set up, the entire Expedition 67 crew, and all 4 of our AX-1 astronauts newly arrived, and be able to execute a welcome ceremony. There we can see Dragon Endeavour. It's docked to that space-facing port on Node 2. We've got 2 docking adapters right now that work for any US-based vehicles that dock as opposed to berthing to the space station like the previous version of Dragon. And with this new arrival, we have 2 crewed versions, 2 Dragons capable of carrying crew docked to the space station. We've got Endeavour making a return to the space station, famously being the first to fly astronauts, Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley, to the station on Demo 2, the first human space flight on the Dragon system. And then out of view, but essentially to the left of this camera view, is the Crew Dragon Endurance docked to the forward hatch of the exact same module, Node 2. And that carried NASA's SpaceX Crew 3 astronauts, including Tom Marshburn and Caleb Barron, who we can see continue doing the hatch operations to the space station last fall. So for right now, the crew continuing to step through the procedures. Tom Marshburn almost done with the hatch ops again. He's going to get the cover on, and then they're going to work to get that ducting up to get secured in the vestibule, and then it can get mated after we get the hatch open to help integrate the Dragon cabin with the rest of the station atmosphere. And then the station crew will give a call down that they're ready for hatch equalization, as well as the Dragon crew giving that same call down. And then we'll get a call up from the Capcom here in Houston, just telling the crew to stand by and giving a rough estimate on how long we expect that hatch equalization to take. And then once that's completed, we can get into the Dragon hatch open. And the hatch gets opened on the Dragon side. It can be opened from either side by its design, but just following the normal procedures, it's going to be opened by the Dragon crew. And there's a decal actually on the hatch that just gives the instructions for how to operate the hatch opening mechanism on board. And then after we get the Dragon hatch open, the crew will come on board, and we'll get them all gathered together for a formal welcome ceremony on board the station. If you've ever watched a crew arrive, it's going to look very similar to that. This is something we do with all of our new arrivals at the space station, just to formally give them a welcome and begin their stay on board. Once that's completed, though, they're going to get right to work with Tom Marshburn leading the entire crew through just an initial orientation that'll include all of the current residents of the station as well as the AX-1 astronauts. So they just go through a safety briefing with him just walking through a reminder of where all the emergency hardware is, what their actions are in the event of any kind of emergency, just going over paths, hatch operations, things of that nature, as this is all stuff that gets trained on the ground, and then refreshers are always done right after new crew members arrive on orbit. And this is training that any individual flying to the space station goes through. We've talked pretty extensively in the lead up to the flight over the differences in training between a traditional long duration astronaut and one of the astronauts on the AX-1 mission. One thing that is absolutely the exact same is that they receive emergency training. That safety training is that first and foremost, to have an effective response, every single member of the crew has to know what their job is in the event of an emergency. And so they'll just do that safety briefing. And then for Expedition 67, they'll largely get the rest of the day off. They have some cargo ops on their timeline to either unpack items that just flew up or just to assist the AX-1 crew in offloading some of the cargo that they brought with them. Meanwhile, Tom Marshburn will also just spend a couple hours walking the newly arrived astronauts just through an orientation, essentially. Shows up on their timeline as something called crew handover, just getting them acquainted with the surroundings, walking them through the basics of where they'll be able to do toiletry and hygiene functions, where the galley is, where water dispensers are, things of that nature, just to get them reoriented with where they're going to be living and working for more than the next week. So all of that still to come for now, though. We're still in these hatch operations, waiting for additional confirmations. But right now it's Tom Marshburn continuing to work on the station side. We did get confirmation that APAS, so the station side hatch, is open. So he's removed a docking target, he's affixing a cover, and then getting some of the intermodule ventilation set up before we then get ready for hatch equalization. So we'll get a call from the crew on station, call from the crew on Dragon, and then a go from the ground, and giving a rough approximation of how long we expect that to take. But if we follow the timeline as it was written out, taking into account our roughly 45-minute late docking time, we should be within a half an hour of that Dragon hatch open. So we'll continue to follow along. We'll give you the updates as we hear them called out. Everything continuing on board the station to welcome AX-1 on board.
And SpaceX station is ready for Dragon hatch equalization.
So we just
Copy
heard
that, and we'll stand
another
by
step
for
completed.
Endeavor's call for their half.
So as mentioned, the station calling down first that they're ready for hatch equalization. Now we'll stand by for a call from the Crew Dragon Endeavor astronauts that they're ready for equalization. The ethos, the life support, and environmental system officer here in Houston reporting we should take only about 2 minutes for this hatch equalization to take place. So we might be hopefully jumping ahead on our timeline now.
we're ready for hatch equalization.
Copy that, Endeavor.
Dragon, SpaceX on
Standby
Dragon ground for waste system flush.
Expected to take 2 minutes once we get started.
Copy. Go ahead, Jake.
Como estamos aí, fazendo já a equalização para o hatch?
We are marching towards hatch open. Last step there is hatch equalization, about 2 minutes for that. We are tracking the waste system flush as the last big item to be completed in Dragon. Want to make sure it's on your agenda as well. We are tracking the waste system flush as the last big item.
Yes, Jake, good read. It is on our agenda. I thought it would be appropriate to skip that to get to the hatch open unless you think otherwise.
Hey, Mike. Glad we're talking about it. The hatch is going to mechanically block the waste system, and for that reason, it's required to do this flush before hatch opens.
Eles tiram algumas fotos lá também.
That's a great call. There's always a good reason for it. We'll put that in work right now.
Antes de abrir a porta, então, tem mais alguns procedimentos de equalização e pressurização, né?
All right, so both the station and Dragon crews have reported their readiness for hatch equalization. On board Dragon, they do have to do a flush of the waste disposal system first.
Se alguém chegou aí agora na live aí, por favor, pode fazer seus comentários, que a gente compartilha aqui o que está acontecendo aqui, se for o caso. Tivemos um atraso aí de 45 minutos, era 10h30 a cerimônia de recepção dos astronautas, já estamos indo para 5 minutos para as 11 aqui no Brasil, horário do Brasil, já vai para meia hora de atraso do schedule inicial, mas mais 15 minutos, está dando aí mais uns 15 minutos para fazer essa abertura do hatch aí, para a cerimônia de recepção dos 4 astronautas da Crew Dragon na ISS.
And how's the audio? 5, 4, 3,
astronauta ali tirando umas fotos, todo animadinho ali também, tô gostando de ver. Ele já tá ali a postos ali para recepção da galera já com. Ah, que legal. Ajustes aí para as fotos oficiais aí da ISS. Com flash e tudo. Astronauta feminina toda vaidosa, inclusive, passou um botãozinho aí antes da transmissão que eu vi. Eu vi ela passando um botãozinho aqui, ó, toda vaidosa. Bonita astronauta aí. Um outro colega aqui, apareceu aqui na direita. Então já temos 3 aí astronautas para receber os 4, desculpa, que vão vir da Dragon. Está se posicionando ali o colega. Então, ó, na parte da ISS está feito os procedimentos do hatch opening, né? Abriu a porta, a ISS está aguardando a Crew Dragon fazer aí os ajustes para abrir a porta do lado de lá. E então a ISS já está a postos para recebê-los. É legal o registro fotográfico aí da galera. Muito, muito legal isso. Vamos dar uma revisão agora no meu bannerzinho aqui, então.
And continuing to get a view inside of Node 2, looking up at the space-facing hatch. And that's where Crew Dragon Endeavour has docked. Tom Marshburn there. We just heard him do an audio check on the mic we're going to see them use for that welcome ceremony. The station hatch is open, and we were just waiting for the crew on Dragon to do a final flush of that waste disposal system, after which we'll be able to step into hatch equalization. So that's just making sure pressures equalize, pressures essentially equal to each other on either side of the Dragon hatch. And then the MCCX team and Hawthorne will give the Dragon crew a go to begin opening up that hatch. We only expect that equalization to take about 2 minutes.
Esperando aí mais 2 minutos para a equalização final,
once that hatch is open, we'll be able to welcome the AX-1 astronauts on board. And getting a pretty unique view here. This is that centerline camera that we were watching during the final phases of Dragon's approach. And as we are now docked, and it's right at the top hatch point, this is looking inside of the pressurized mating adapter, the PMA, where you can see NASA astronaut Caleb Barron there just up and outside of the hatchway looking in. So
Caleb Barron é astronauta, o nome da astronauta chama Kyla Barron.
During that final approach. And still
imagem da Kyla Barron tirando as fotos ali,
fazendo
os ajustes, ela toda sorridente lá, simpática Kyla. Que bonita.
But we are just still standing by for the Dragon hatch to get opened. We'll get into hatch equalization momentarily. And as soon as we get into that, we expect it to only take about 2 minutes for the pressures to equalize. And then the Dragon crew will get the go to open up the hatch.
A gente tem que receber uma visita lá, já volto, pessoal, já volto.
And this is Mission Control Houston, just still waiting for that hatch open to take place. Getting this really cool split screen view though, as we're looking on the left at a camera inside of the Station Node 2, the Harmony module. It's looking up at the space facing of the Zenith port, where Crew Dragon's currently docked. And then on the right there,
já volto.
Centerline media camera on the Dragon spacecraft looking inside of station. It's looking inside the pressurized mating adapter number 3, on top of which is international docking adapter number 3, where the Crew Dragon Endeavour docked successfully just about an hour and a half ago, with the docking at 7:29 Central. So again, we're just standing by for the hatch equalization to begin. We expect it to only take about 2 minutes, and that's just to ensure pressures are equal on either sides of the Dragon hatch. So essentially in the Dragon cabin atmosphere and in that vestibule and PMA area just on the other side. And the Dragon crew will get to go to open the hatch. There's a decal on the Dragon hatch, which can be opened from either side, but it's going to get opened on the Dragon side following the nominal timeline. And then after we get the hatches open, there's a couple of immediate steps just to configure Dragon for its long-term dock duration to the space station, where it's going to be for more than a week docked to that upper part of Node 2. There's a couple of steps they have to take to just essentially prep Dragon for that docked ops. They're going to safe or remove some of the LiO cartridge, the lithium hydroxide cartridge that's used to scrub CO2 from the atmosphere while Dragon's in free flight. They just seal that up and store it temporarily, and then it gets reinstalled once Dragon's ready to go out and execute its free flight
return.
SpaceX Endeavour, Dragon to ground.
Dragon, SpaceX, ready to copy on Dragon to ground.
We are really ready for Dragon hatch opening now with the year-end flush complete. And would you like me to make that call in the big loop?
Okay, copy all, Dragon. We'll follow you into 4.400, Section 6. We've got one command to send, and then I'll send a call on the big loop.
Copy that.
All right, and
Dragon,
now we are
SpaceX
ready for
on
hatch
Dragon to ground. One quick note, wondering if we can come on board with cameras.
That's affirmative, Jake. Come on board.
Copy, Dragon. We'll be on board imminently.
And the camera is being turned on once again inside Dragon. We should be able to join them momentarily. But getting the go is we're now about to execute hatch equalization. We only expect that to take about 2 minutes. It'll be a command sent from the ground to the Dragon spacecraft from MCCX out in Hawthorne. Once that's complete, the crew will get the go to open up the hatch.
E aí? Como estamos?
SpaceX in ground also reporting 4.102, sorry, 12 is complete, 4.012.
Copy all, Mike, on suit doffing completion.
And getting views inside of Endeavour once more, looking over the shoulders of commander and pilot. You heard them report suits have been docked, so they're out of their flight suits, or they're out of their space suits rather. And those have been
Poxa, legal que essa imagem, tirar uma fotinha aqui.
Now in flight suits and awaiting the hatch open operations.
Tirar uma foto aqui agora. Fazer o meu book da Action Mission. O book da Action Mission já está underway. Como é que estamos aí? Já voltei. Puxa, saiu, já volto lá. A foto.
Dragon, SpaceX on Dragon to ground. We're standing by for final equalization. Stand by for a call on the big loop.
Já estão arrumando ali os trajes espaciais aí para a equalização final para o Big Loop de abrir a porta e adentrar a ISS.
102, step 6.3. We suspect that should say on MCCX go, but let us know if that's a mistake.
Ele está suspeitando aí de alguma coisa lá. Espero que seja um erro ali, um detalhe ali, um MCC no step 6 ali. Bom, agora tá uma imagem mais legal ainda, hein? Eu vou tirando várias fotos e depois eu seleciono a melhorzinha.
So again, we're just standing by for that final hatch equalization. It'll be a command from MCCX in Hawthorne. That'll get sent up to Dragon, and they'll equalize pressures on either side of the hatch. Then the crew will get to go
com o astronauta ali
on the Dragon side to open up the hatch and make their way inside the International Space Station.
Dragon, SpaceX on Dragon to ground for 2.102 clarification. We see step 6.3 and confirm it is an MCCH go. That's after the hatch is open, sort of a handover to the ISS crew. Yeah.
Okay. Well, one of you guys tells us to do it, we'll do it.
Vou mostrar enquanto eles estão entrando aí. Vou mostrar um pouquinho aqui dos meus stories aí, tá no Big Loop aí. Mostrar um pouquinho dos meus stories aí, cobertura do lançamento do AXIOM-1. Opa, peraí.
Chegou, novos tempos para as viagens espaciais.
All right, good news there. We're through hatch equalization. The crew's been given the go to open it up. And so there is a decal on the hatch itself. It shows them how to work the hatch mechanism.
Vai decolar.
They're going to open it up and it swings inside the Dragon spacecraft to get stowed.
Maravilha. NASA aqui no Space Center, NASA Space Launch System. O som de 2001 no céu no espaço.
Seal around the open hatchway. As people are moving in and out, I'm also installing a cover over the hatch itself.
Artemis e Axiom juntas pela primeira vez, duas foguetes tripulados.
And now we're just standing
Invincible, when in love. 3, 2, 1, lift off. Olha os membros da tripulação aí.
There we go, hatch opening.
Space, it's what it loves to be. Good voyage, guys. God bless os 4 astronautas.
The hatch open.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and lift off.
The hatch opened at 9:13 a.m. Central Time. It's 14:13 GMT. 7:13 for the teams over in Hawthorne. So now they're going to install that hatch seal and a cover over the hatch itself and start making their way on board the station. But the hatch is open.
Esse é o meu foco principal,
Nothing but space in between Crew Dragon Endeavour and the space station.
Ajustes finais aí. Não é a Lila? A Lila fazendo bagunça aqui. A Lilinha tá fazendo bagunça aqui. A Kate está tirando fotos lá. Eu vou tirar fotos aqui com a Lila também. Olha lá, Lila. Olha os astronautas chegando lá, ó. Tchan, tchan, tchan. Tchan, tchan. Tum, 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 tum. O primeiro ser vivo aí para o espaço foi uma cachorrinha, a cadelinha Laika russa. Eita lá, hein? Hein, Alila? Todo o registro da operação sendo feita em detalhes, fotografado, registrado ali pelos astronautas da ISS.
And we're just standing by for the crew to start making their way through. Again, the hatch open on Dragon. So hatch open on the station side some time ago. Hatch now open on Dragon. They've got a couple of steps just to prepare Dragon for docked. Its docked configuration. And then we should start to see them make their way through the pressurized mating adapter and into the International Space Station. So continuing to stand by, we can see the AX-1 astronaut still inside Dragon. And we should see them start making their way out momentarily. So Expedition 67 Commander Tom Marshburn making his way down, and there we are.
Ai, ó, estamos chegando! Aí é o primeiro astronauta a entrar, hatch open, aí maravilha, aí ó. A galera aí, gente.
So Aton's to be first one through, followed shortly after by Mark Pathy making his way onto the space station.
O Larry Conner acho que foi o primeiro,
Looks like
depois
just
o Mark
behind
Pathy,
him is going to be Larry Conner, the pilot for the AX-1 mission. Now through the hatchway into
tá
node 2.
Arrumando a câmera ali, ó. Tá ajeitando a câmera ali.
Mark adjusting our camera angle for us.
Olha lá, agora o último ali é o Michael Lopes Alegria chegando, é o comandante.
Way out of a spacecraft named Endeavour onto the space station for the second time. No stranger to the orbiting lab, Mike Lopez Alegria.
Michael Lopes Alegria chegando ali, que show de bola! Aí, galera, show de bola, muito legal. Se abraçando ali. Tan, 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 tan. Vou colocar aqui um 2001. Vamos colocar um 2001 aqui.
I grow my business by reaching my most important customers, people like Allison. She's a fashionista who's passionate about shopping and lives. By advertising on YouTube, I grow my business by reaching my.
So with the entire AX-1 crew now on board, we're going to spend a couple minutes just getting everybody set up, and then we'll be able to kick off our welcome ceremony.
By advertising on YouTube.
Welcome ceremony daqui a pouquinho. Estão se ajeitando ali. Tem gente, tá nos 3 astronautas ali, falta mais um ali, ó. Falta mais um.
And Houston Station on 2, just checking scene checks and let us know when you want us to go active with the mic.
Que show de bola.
Copy that. We're taking a look. We'll let you know.
Show de bola, os astronautas acoplando na ISS lá. Show de bola. Fotos oficiais aí. Tarará, tá. Tá. Show de bola, 2001. Vamos colocar o 2001 de novo aqui, ó. Vamos colocar o 2001 de novo. Foto oficial. Os 4 astronautas posicionados. A galera da ISS também, a Kate ali do ladinho. Olha pra cá, olha pra cá, olha pra cá, olha todo mundo pra cá, olha todo mundo pra cá.
So we can see the crew gathering here in Node 2 in the Harmony module. The Expedition 67 crew welcoming the AX-1 astronauts on board. There's still a couple of steps to get through.
Vão fazer a cerimônia de welcome.
Done with our initial configs on board, we'll be able to get into this welcome ceremony.
Da, 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 Houston, we are ready.
So a short handover now with the video link. It's likely the crew will have a couple of tasks to take before we get into that welcome ceremony, but good to see them all making their way on board. As mentioned, there's a couple of post-docking configurations steps that have to take place on board Dragon, namely sealing up a lithium hydroxide canister that's used to scrub CO2 from the atmosphere while Dragon's in free flight, also getting a hatch seal and a hatch cover on. So it's looking like the crew might get the call to go through those steps.
Então agora vai ter a cerimônia de recepção que o colega está dizendo aí. Vou tirar agora o Danúbio Azul de 2001. Vamos retirar aqui para não ter problemas de direitos autorais. Foto. Foto.
Okay, copy. So Tom's going to do the grab sample. I assume we seem to talk about like the LIO swap out for the post-hatch opening activity. Hey, copy. That's in work, and we'll let you know where it's at.
And so a couple of quick tasks for the crew just before we get into the welcome ceremony. Again, they got to go seal that LIO canister inside Dragon. They're going to take it out, seal it up, and it's going to stay stowed until they unseal it and reinstall it when Dragon's ready to depart the space station. Also getting that hatch seal on. Commander Tom Marshburn's also going to use a grab sample container just to get an instantaneous air sample in that hatchway between the two. And that's just another standard procedure.
Houston and Denver on the big group. We're looking for a go from you in section 6, step 1, 6.2 of 2.102.
And Endeavor, Houston, copy that.
Apologies, make that 6.3.
Yes, sir. For 6.3, we concur, but before we do that, we need confirmation from you that you have the IMV duct installation complete in step 6.1.
Stand by, we'll need to get back to you on that.
Copy.
And so again, the crew moved back up towards Dragon just to step through some of those post-docking procedures. One of them is getting an IMV and intermodular ventilation duct installed.
Voltaram lá para Dragon para fazer post-procedure lá, né?
Dragon spacecraft as we
Intramodular
continue to further
ventilation
integrate
duct.
it into the station stack. They're
Para
also
começar a
removing
segurar
that LIO cartridge, sealing it up,
descircular
and
o ar
then stowing it, and then getting
gás
a
carbônico lá, né?
hatch cover on the
Tem
Dragon
algum
hatch and
procedimento lá para
hatch seal cover
eles fazerem
around that seal, just to give it some extra protection as folks are
fechar
moving in and out
o
of it
hatch novamente.
over time. And then they'll make their way back into
E
node
aí,
2 here,
vão voltar
and
aqui
then
para
we'll be able
SS
to
para
officially and
fechar
formally welcome the
a
AX1 crew
porta.
on board. So that'll just take a
Então,
couple of
terminando os
minutes
procedimentos, a gente
for all of that to
entra
get
aqui na
done.
cerimônia
Again,
de
just to put
recepção
Dragon
daqui a
into its
pouquinho, daqui a alguns
configuration
minutos.
for extended docked
E aí tira
operations.
umas fotos oficiais aqui também.
Once we get through that, we'll get to our welcome ceremony, after which the AX1 crew will join the rest of Expedition 67 in a safety briefing, just doing a refresher of what they trained on the ground, going over all of the different safety features of the International Space Station, including exit paths, and also the location of emergency gear. And then the AX1 astronauts have a couple hours
we do have
handover
the
built in.
installed for 6.1.
Copy that, Endeavor. Give us 30 seconds. We're going to activate the fan. Once that's done, I'll come back with a go for you in 6.3.
Estão terminando ali o...
All right, and so they have that IMV, that intermodular ventilation now installed, and so the teams here on the ground in Houston are going to enable it from Mission Control Houston, essentially turning the fan on, and that's just going to give a positive pressure to start circulating atmosphere through the Dragon capsule with the rest of station. And then per his procedures, Mike LA is going to take a look and just make sure there's no debris under a panel on that air circulation, and then he's going to move into removing the lithium hydroxide canister.
And want to relay also from the SpaceX team here, if you guys can circle back when that's done to procedure 4.400, section 6. Sounds like you've got a couple small steps left to complete in that procedure as well.
Eu comprei na livraria aqui da esquina. Ali, né?
Ah, foi lá com a Elisele, né? Elisele é um amor.
Ai, gente, que lindo. Ela virou bonequinha. Ela virou uma boneca. Essa é a Maria. Essa é a Maria. Que linda. Ai, gente, que amor. Que lindo.
Fofinhas, né?
Muito legal.
Mas a Lívia, tu viu, né? Ela
tem a Vitória ia adorar.
Ela tem tudo que ela precisa, né? Tudo que ela pode ter, querida da Lívia.
Tem de tudo.
Graças a Deus que você tem toda essa condição, né? Porque quando a criança na condição dela não tem, né?
Dá um aperto.
Descreveu o livro até,
bom que vocês podem proporcionar tudo isso para ela, né? Meu Deus.
Mas é o tanto que eu tive que estudar para proporcionar isso para ele.
Exatamente, né? É busca, né?
E ele guardou tudo. Eu falei para ele, viu que cabe no cartãozinho de memória desse tamanho.
Meus concursos. Eu vou fazer uma romance, eu vou doar alguns livros aqui. Estou fazendo uma romance aqui na biblioteca. Aí eu botei tudo isso para ficar maior do que eu, só para tirar uma foto.
Olha o filtro de cabelo curto.
É o gatinho. Esse aqui é o gatinho. Olha, era gata, a maior gata.
Tu conheceu ele assim, Regiane? E daí tu deixou ele deixar o cabelo.
Era o maior gatinho.
We see one of our AX-1 crew members, Eitan Sibi, there in Node 2. We're going to see the rest of them start to gather as they're just going through the final stages of getting Dragon configured for docked operations. We've successfully hooked up and turned on the IMV fan, just integrating Dragon's cabin atmosphere with that of station. Right now, spacecraft commander Mike LA working to remove the lithium hydroxide canister, which is used to scrub CO2 from the atmosphere while Dragon's in free flight. That'll get sealed up and stored away, and then it'll get unsealed and reinstalled when it's time for Dragon to undock and come home. They have several of these canisters on board to provide that critical life support function.
E daí meu marido falou, acho que tu podia, tipo, né, selecionar alguns e colocar... Eu falei, mas não consigo.
Tem outro livinho aqui.
And he's getting some assistance right now inside Dragon from some of the Crew 3 astronauts who went through essentially the exact same procedures when they docked the station in Crew Dragon Endurance. So very familiar with the procedures, giving him a hand to help things get done as quickly as possible. They're also going to be installing a cover on the Dragon hatch and also on the hatch seal, just giving both of those critical items some extra protection as folks are going to be moving in and out of Dragon over the coming days. One of the AX-1 crew members is going to be sleeping inside Dragon during the dock stay.
Eu não tenho nada, eu só tenho da Beth.
Os meus estão guardadinhos aqui.
Viu que nós estamos indo,
tá?
Foi um prazer. Eu estava falando para a Regiane e nós vamos trocar a Jussi. A Jussi está com
para cuidar da mãe dela, né? Não, de boa.
E daí vai vir a Neuza.
But again, once we get all these steps wrapped up, the rest of the crew is going to gather here in Node 2, the Harmony module, and be able to kick off our formal welcome to the first private astronaut mission ever to the International Space Station.
E a última foto da árvore foi com vocês. Eu vou desmontar ela hoje.
Acabou o Natal.
Hoje que eu vou desmontar.
E tu vai guardar onde esses livros aí?
Tem que encaixar aí, ó. Tem que encaixar aí. Recebendo aqui visitas aqui em casa. Vamos voltar aqui então para o Welcome Ceremony dos astronautas da AX-1 dentro da ISS. Vamos lá. Bonitinho ver aí ó, a preparação da galera. Já esquentou aqui, saiu um sol maravilhoso aqui em Chapecó. Eu vou me libertar aqui desse meu spacesuit aqui também. Eu já vou pressurizar aqui na temperatura ambiente em Chapecó, que já está bem quentinha. Então, enquanto os astronautas se estabilizam por lá, eu me estabilizo por cá. Estabilizar minha pressão e temperatura. As lives aí, eu estou organizando agora, eu fico bonito só de cima para baixo. A parte de baixo aqui já não está legal, não. Então vamos aqui, toma essa camisa aqui de baixo, é da Feira do Livro Chapecó 2019, coisa linda, coisa linda. Laranjinha, igual um Space Suit, lá, tem um colega de laranja ali também, não, laranja são os sistemas ali da ISS. Momentos finais, preparação para Welcome Ceremony. Vamos que vamos. 11h37, horário do Brasil, nesse momento, 9 de abril de 2022, 11h37 da manhã. Daqui a pouco vamos almoçar aqui no Brasil. Ajustes aí de recepção dos astronautas. Que momento legal, né?
And we're just continuing to stand by while the crew continues to configure Endurance for its docked operations on board the station.
Dragon, SpaceX,
it does appear that they've successfully
Go ahead on the big loop, Jake.
Hey, Mike, we saw you do some audio reconfiguration there. Our ask is that you leave audio in the current configuration, what you just did, push to talk to ISS. That's one. How copy?
Copy that.
Sounds good. Second item is that we're hoping you can step through 4.400 6.9 to disable backup lighting on the control
São os
panel.
procedimentos lá de ajustes finais aí da acoplagem das duas, da Dragon e da ISS.
We will definitely do that. We're working through 2.102 right now.
Daqui a pouco a gente tira umas fotos oficiais aqui com a tripulação.
Copy you working through 2.102 as well. Feel free to prioritize that. We have an eye on step 7.2 in 2.102 and letting you know that you do have a go to perform the manual override on the AVV panel.
Okay, not required. All of the valves are in the closed position, and I also, if you didn't hear it, reported earlier that the LIO cartridge is sealed and installed.
Okay, copy, Mike. Understand all valves indicate closed. No manual override needed.
That's a good copy.
All right, so continuing to tick off some of the steps to get Dragon ready for docked ops. We confirmed that the LIO, the lithium hydroxide canister, has been sealed and stowed. And then Spacecraft Commander Michael Lake confirming that all the Dragon vent valves are in the proper closed configuration.
A hora que o comandante Michael Lopes Alegria confirmar que as válvulas de controle da Dragon estão ok, eles fazem aí os ajustes finais. E aí para a cerimônia de recepção dos astronautas, enfim. Os últimos procedimentos. Larry Connor se ajustando ali. Não, aquele ali é o wait and see, desculpa.
As individuals are moving in and out of Dragon. Meanwhile, we see half of our AX-1 crew standing by in Node 2, along with NASA astronaut and the current Expedition 67 commander, Tom Marshburn. And then once we're complete with these final steps, we'll see the rest of the crew
wanted you to know that Dragon arrival configuration is complete for 2.102.
Dragon SpaceX, we copy.
Houston copies as well. Thank you.
And so that completes all of their steps and their arrival through hatch opening procedures, meaning they've got the hatch
o Larry
and the
Connor
hatch
que está
seal
aqui de
covers
costas
installed, all of their
e que tem
tools
tá ali
have been
tirando
stowed,
fotos.
and they're ready to
Deixa
start
eu
making their
verificar.
way
Eu
out of
acho que é
Dragon and on into
wait and
station.
see
So we
mesmo de
should see the rest
Israel.
of the crew come out of
Ou
Dragon
Mark Spector,
momentarily, and then start gathering everybody inside of Node 2. We have 11 people on board the International Space
Tem
Station
11
right now.
astronautas na ISS agora, e agora vão ser, com mais 4, vai dar 15. Então, é o Wait and Steve de Israel que está ali, mais atrás. O Larry Connor está aqui à direita. E os outros dois, o comandante e o Mark Pass, estão dentro ali do Dragon. Já estão saindo daqui a pouquinho para os últimos ajustes para retornar aqui à ISS. Os outros astronautas da ISS estão se ajuntando ali. Vai ser difícil sair 15 pessoas na foto, hein? Estão se ajuntando ali. O Mark Petz aqui à extrema direita, o Mark Petz, Larry Connor ao centro, o Wait and Steve ali atrás. Falta o Michael Lopes Alegria retornar ali da Dragon, e aí faz a Welcome Ceremony.
You got the grab sample. Let's stow to the staging bag. SpaceX Endeavor on the big loop. Procedure 4.400 is complete.
Procedimento então de
Dragon, SpaceX,
final da SpaceX Dragon Endeavour. Está completo aqui, ó. Big Loop completo.
And next call, knock on wood,
Great work, Mike. This is the last you hear from me today. Bom trabalho, Mike. É a última coisa que você vai me ouvir de novo. Knock on wood will be.
Working with you, Kelly, and the team. A little bit of a delay, but that's been the story for AX1 so far. It's all worth the wait. Thank you, guys.
São alguns procedimentos agora, acho possivelmente de saúde, talvez, eles assoprando ali esses tubinhos aqui, tá vendo? Talvez algum procedimento de saúde. Scene check, vão fazer o Houston tá falando ali, né? Vão fazer aí um check final ali, o pessoal de Houston.
1450. So just be aware of that during the event.
All right, well, we now have Dragon in its stock configuration. No more calls.
Dragon já está em stock configuration. Então, configuração já
now to the Capcom
está tudo
here in Houston.
ok. A Marisa aí
The
participar
AX-1
aqui
crew
também
join all of the
transmissão, né,
astronauts
Marisa?
on board the station.
Olha os astronautas lá, Marie. Você sabia que a primeira bichinha a ir para a Lua foi a cadela, para o espaço foi a cadela Laika?
And now as we get everybody set up, we should be just moments away now, kicking off our formal welcome ceremony for the first private astronaut
mission. Olha lá, o Michael Lopes chegou ali, está
Space
chegando
Station.
ali por ali. Vamos tirar umas fotos? Vamos tirar umas fotos? Ei, Marie, sai uma foto aqui comigo, Marie, vem cá. Ó. Sai numa fotinha aqui comigo, Marie, vamos lá. Ajusta a câmera aí, meus amigos. Aí. Levanta o tiquinho, levanta o tiquinho. Levanta o tiquinho. Aê! Valeu, Marie.
And the crew working to try and get our camera reoriented so we can hopefully try and get a view of all 11 people now living on board the space station.
Vem, Marie. Vou tirar essa foto aqui, ó, vem cá. Aí, tá liberada. Opa, deu um 180 ali. Deu uns 180 graus ali. Ih, rapaz, coube todo mundo na foto! Show de bola! Show de bola, que foto maneira! Coube todo mundo. Deixa eu contar
And guys, we like the scene. Looking good there. We should be able to get started here momentarily. Stand
3,
by.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. São 11 ao todo. Já 11 contando já com os 4, né? São 11 ao todo. Vou tirar uma foto minha aqui, maiorzinha aqui com a galera. Show de bola! Onze astronautas a bordo da Estação Espacial Internacional. Tá cheinha a estação. Olha para cá, amados. Foto. Olha para cá, foto. Ah, isso aí. Olha para cá. Ô, Russo. Isso aí, meu amado. Show de bola. Mais o menorzinho aqui. O Russo. Olha para cá, meu amigo. Aí. Eita,
and Tom, back with you
lasqueira.
real quick. I think you were trying to talk on the mic, but I think it might have been off. Could you give another comm check real quick?
Okay, comm check. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. How do you copy?
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay.
And we're hearing you.
We're hearing you.
And station, this is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
Station, this is Houston. We're ready for the welcome ceremony event.
Ready, loud and clear.
Station is ready for the event.
Ready for the event, Houston.
Kathy Leaders, this is Mission Control, Houston. Please call station for a
Controle
voice
de
check.
missão, Houston.
Hey, I think we already did that. I think we already did that. I apologize. We can hear you loud and clear. Thank you.
Loud and clear.
Tom, I don't know if you muted again.
Opa, palavrão não.
The microphone is on.
Microphone is on.
We read you loud and clear, and we're ready to speak.
Loud and clear, and ready to go.
Okay, well, I had an old boss whose his greatest praise was when you heard him say, "Nicely done."
Old?
Oh, sorry. And so all I can say is nicely done. And to the whole team, the SpaceX Axiom station team, and you know, Mike here, I know that the Expedition 67 crew is very happy to see your crew.
Estão dizendo, estão muito felizes aí de ver aí a Expedição 67, o crew members da ISS. Tem colega lá dizendo também da SpaceX, da Axiom. Estão muito felizes aqui que estão vendo a nova tripulação on board. Todos saudáveis, felizes lá. E ela está muito também feliz para ver. E tudo deu
fun to see our crews there getting ready to go do a lot of work. I know the team has a lot of things lined up to do over this next week, and this is going to be important for us to be able to work as a team, for our Expedition 67 folks to get the important work that they need to get done, but then, Mike, obviously your team to be able to get their work done too. So we're looking forward to see all the exciting things that are going to be going on, and
ela está ansiosa aí para as pesquisas científicas, as coisas que a galera vai trabalhar lá. Eita, é isso aí. Deu um welcome to a galera lá. Exciting things going to see. Pessoal de Houston ali, apostos.
And just a short momentary handover, we'll get that communication back real quickly with the space station, and then continue through our welcome.
Cortou ao vivo da ISS, meus amados. É assim, né? Um cut aí na communication. E estão restabelecendo a comunicação. Voltou ali o pessoal de Houston agora. Teve um pequeno problema aí de transmissão aí. Da Welcome Cerimônia dos astronautas, os 4 astronautas da primeira missão privada comercial a ir até a ISS. Os 4 astronautas já fizeram o rendezvous de 20 horas, lançados aqui ontem, 8 de abril, meio-dia 17, 20 horas de viagem, chegaram hoje, acoplaram agora, hoje são 11h54 da manhã de 9 de abril de 2022, fizeram o docking, entraram ali na ISS e já retornamos a comunicação para o Welcome Ceremony dos astronautas. São 11 astronautas ao todo na ISS agora.
I believe we're back with you.
Back with you, my friend. Talking,
hey,
Mike.
Tom, this is Seth. Can you guys hear us?
It's good to hear yourself. We can read you loud and clear.
We can hear you loud and clear.
Great. Well, first, let me thank you and Expedition 67 crew for welcoming our crew on board. We're very excited to be there, of course.
Bem animados
Mike,
aí com esse
hey,
momento.
Tom, Mark, you guys look great. The Dragon ride looks like
ótimos, né?
That sat with you well.
A viagem da Dragon.
First, I'll say thanks to our SpaceX team for getting you there. That was really awesome. My thanks to NASA for hosting us.
Obrigado aí a NASA pelo
crew.
trabalho todo que foi
We've been
feito
talking about this history-making mission for a long time. So we're going to stop talking about it now and just get on with it. So you guys have a great mission. We look forward to it.
Né?
And with that, I'll hand it over to
Vocês têm excelentes missões aí para nesses 8 dias aí. The Pining Ceremony.
Hey, Mike and Kathy, thanks for greeting us on board. I got to tell you, this is
Michael
quite an experience. I can't even begin to describe how fun it's been to be in Dragon for the last
como estou feliz
day and a half or
aqui da
so, watching these guys' faces light up. True story. you know, we had just reached orbit and getting out of our suits, and I was, you know, busy at doing commander stuff, and
eu estava fazendo ali os trabalhos de comandante, mas fizemos a viagem espacial, tiramos nossos spacesuits, e agora estamos aqui dentro da ISS.
And then when I got my turn to look at it, same expletive. It's just an amazing experience.
É uma experiência maravilhosa.
Anyway, you know, there's a tradition that when you cross a certain boundary and that
tem uma tradição, quando você cruza uma barreira como essa, né?
You become an astronaut in
altitude. Você se torna astronauta.
And that happened to these three gentlemen for the first time yesterday.
Esses três senhores, então, romperam essa barreira pela primeira vez.
And now I'd like to note it a little more officially. There is a very special pin that NASA astronauts wear that is gold and designed by the original Mercury 7.
Excelente plano aí da NASA
recently, there has been no internationally recognized pin. So none of the other 5, or I should say, other 4 space agencies, nor do the Chinese that I know of, have a symbol that people wear in civilian clothes for commemorating that they're astronauts.
Ele falou pouco das outras agências espaciais aí também, né?
Which encompasses a lot of members from 38 different countries of flown astronauts, decided to commission such a pin, and I happen to have 3 of them.
São 38 diferentes países aí a ter astronautas.
And when I pin these on, I think the numbers will be 582, 583, and 584, respectively, for Larry, Eitan, and Mark.
São os números aí, 582.
They will wear these with the pride that they deserve.
584, os
and then I'm
números
going to
aí.
Let Larry say something while I pin his, etc.
O pin, tá dando pin de comemoração aí para eles, né?
Probably
esse
words
número
don't
não sei o que representa aí, mas
I mean, I'm thrilled and honored to be up here.
Eles se tornaram oficialmente astronautas agora,
SpaceX, phenomenal ride.
I mean, uma viagem fenomenal aí, o Larry Connor está falando agora.
Thanks to
piloto, né?
AXIOM for making this dream
Obrigado
come
aí,
true.
Toda a equipe
Thanks
da
to
Axiom.
NASA. Thanks to our crew, unbelievably welcome.
Sonho inesquecível.
Yeah, we're here to experience this. But we understand there's a responsibility, and the responsibility is for this first civilian crew to get it right. And that's what we're fully committed to with the support of everybody here at the ISS and on the ground. So it's going to be a busy week of research for us, and I'm sure it's going to fly by. And I'd like to turn it over to my friend
Eitan. Bem ocupada aí, cheia de pesquisa aí. E vai ser bem interessante. Agora o Eitan Steve de Israel.
To say a few words in Hebrew on the
Deixa eu
International
falar
Space Station.
poucas palavras em hebraico.
ברוכים הבאים לתחנת החלל הבינלאומית, פעם ראשונה שאפשר לדבר פה בעברית. זכינו להיות חלק מצוות של 11 שנקרא Expedition 67.
em hebraico.
זה קבוצת עבודה שתעבוד ביחד, כולנו ביחד נעזור אחד לשני להשיג את המטרות, כל אחד בא עם תוכנית עבודה מלאה, ובהצלחה לכולם, בהצלחה לרקיע. מרק.
O discurso do Eitan Steve foi em hebraico, agora passou para o Mark Peck, que é do Canadá.
I'd like to thank our hosts here at the ISS for the warm welcome. It was
obrigado aí aos hosts aqui da ISS pela warm, pela cerimônia quente de recepção.
To come on board and be so
estava muito excitante aqui de cruzar a porta.
Looking forward to spending the next few days. Sorry, I forgot to look up there. Next few days here with all of you. And wow, it's just amazing to be here.
Muito maravilhoso estar aqui, os próximos dias aqui de muito trabalho, né?
It's been an amazing journey, and I'm not just talking about the last 24 hours. I'm talking about everything that's got us here.
It's been amazing.
Thanks to Mike and all the folks at AXIOM for hatching this plan and getting it going, and to SpaceX and NASA for making it happen as well. Thanks, everyone. And sorry, last but definitely not least, all my family and friends whose love and support made this possible.
Isso possível. Last but not least, último, mas não mais importante, minha família, meus amigos. Grande beijo, eu amo vocês.
And we just want to say Expedition 67 crew, all of us are incredibly thrilled and excited to welcome AXIOM on board.
A expedição 67 está muito alegre aqui receber esses 4 astronautas.
Continued, we expect long-term cooperation
esperamos
with
aí uma colaboração
NASA, with our international partners, and with private companies and private astronauts. So
com os
we're ready to go to work.
Também, e a NASA. E os parceiros internacionais e companhias privadas.
Godspeed,
we're ready to go.
Thank you, guys. Have fun.
To work. Thank you, guys. Have fun. Desmobilization. A Kate deu um tchau, Kate. Linda. Dando uns 360 graus aí, galera.
AX-1 officially welcomed on board the International Space Station. So it was a very successful day. We got
dia de sucesso aí. Os astronautas já foram recebidos aí com carinho aí na welcome ceremony na ISS.
Everything completing as expected. We were able to dock AX-1 to the space station at 7:29 a.m. Central. It's 12:29 GMT. While they were flying just about 258 statute miles over the Atlantic, getting the hatches open a little less than 2 hours later.
Tá comentando como que foi aí, né? A missão sobre o Atlântico, a hora que eles conseguiram fazer o docking, 20 metros aí da aproximação da ISS, a primeira missão privada, totalmente privada, aí para a estação espacial. Muito trabalho aqui na missão de 8 dias agora, muita pesquisa científica. Então, thank you, Andy, Trish, lá do Hawthorne. O Dan tá falando do Houston lá agora, Mr. Control. Send it back to
thank
Andy
you, Dan.
and Trisha.
Congratulations to yourself too. It's been a super exciting 24 hours. But that is going to wrap it up for us here in Hawthorne 2 for the live joint coverage of AX-1's arrival to the International Space Station. It has been an honor to support AX-1.
É uma honra
we wish the AXIOM crew a successful time on station, and we look forward to joining you when it's time to return home.
E esperamos vocês retornarem à casa de segurança, né? A Patrícia agora dizendo aqui, muito obrigado também.
Starting Monday, April 11th, we will be providing daily updates from AXIOM Mission Control to highlight the range of science research and STEAM events the crew will be conducting over their 8-day mission. Be sure to visit AXIOMspace.com and follow the AXIOM social media channels for real-time updates.
On behalf of SpaceX, Axiom Space and NASA, thank you all for tuning in.
No nome de SpaceX, Axiom Space e NASA, obrigado a todos vocês e nos vemos na próxima. O Andy se despediu lá. Axiom Space, SpaceX e NASA, vocês estão de parabéns.
I have a feather.
Watching NASA Television. Show de bola, vamos dar um pause aqui. Ó, um cara chamado Galileu há muito tempo fez os estudos da lei da gravidade. Eu tô vendo esse teste aqui agora na Lua aqui. Ó, show de bola. Vou dar um pause aqui no nosso colega astronauta aqui, ó. Beleza, então. Não precisa pausa não, porque já entra nessa imagem aqui da Terra aqui, né? Pode deixar rolando enquanto eu faço minha despedida aqui, então. Beleza aí? Olha, exatamente 12:04 aqui no planeta Terra, Chapecó, Santa Catarina, de 9 de abril de 2022. Terminando aqui a transmissão. A mãe já está chegando. Acabou agora, meio-dia. Terminamos a transmissão. E agora eu tenho que ir lá almoçar agora. Nós começamos exatamente, foi 8 horas, né? Eu ia começar às 7h30, mas eu comecei 8 horas. De 8 ao meio-dia, 8, 9, 10, 11, meio-dia. 4 horas, ó, 3 horas e 53 a live aí. Exatamente 4 horas aí. Foi um momento delicioso. Eu tirei umas fotos históricas aqui. Essa é a Terra vista da Space Station agora. Olha que linda aí, ó. E estamos encerrando aqui, ó. Show de bola. God bless aí, ó. Action Space. Congratulations, parabéns. Missão successful. SpaceX. NASA, sim, os astronautas, Michael Lopes Alegria, forte abraço, o piloto Larry Connor, beijão, Eitan Steve Israel, discurso em hebraico, agora eu quero saber o que ele falou em hebraico lá também, né? E o Mark Pathy do Canadá. Os 4 astronautas juntaram aos outros 7 que estavam lá a bordo, então são 11 agora totais na ISS e vão conduzir 8 dias de pesquisas científicas aí. Células cancerígenas, células de envelhecimento, pesquisas ópticas, brainwave, ondas cerebrais, STEAM, Science, Technology, Education and Mathematics, experimentos educacionais, né? Arte, o Larry Cohn é um artista, vai ter algumas ideias de arte lá também que ele vai fazer também. Então tem bastante e são outros 3 experimentos que a NASA está conduzindo lá, que eles vão trazer as amostras aqui, biológicas, com vegetais e outros lá, né? Space suits, trajes espaciais, habitação no espaço, medical care lá, de câncer, o Hospital do Câncer do Canadá, e outras pesquisas que estão sendo feitas, tudo medical care também, né? 8 dias aí de muita pesquisa, e aí retorna no 9º dia, são 10 dias todos aí, foram 20 horas de voo, saindo ontem, meio-dia 17 aqui, 8 de abril de 2022, do Kennedy Space Center, lá na Flórida, Cabo Canaveral. Um voo espetacular, 20 horas, fez o docking agora, acabou de fazer, eles entraram agora fez o rendezvous todo, o voo até chegar na ISS, que está a 400 km de distância aqui de nós, aqui, né? Então, está sobrevoando o Oceano Atlântico agora, a ISS está aqui, ó, 400 km de distância da Terra. 20 horas para chegar até lá, chegou ali, fez todo o dock approximation lá, né? 20 metros da ISS, que ela reduz, vai ali alguns metros por segundo até fazer o dock, os 12 hooks ali para fechar, ambientar, fazer a estabilização da pressurização, temperatura e estabilização, até fazer a abertura da porta da ISS e depois a porta da Dragon Spacecraft Endeavour, e aí os astronautas finalmente entrarem lá e tiveram toda essa cerimônia de recepção que acabamos de ver e registrar ao vivo aqui, 4 horas. Eu vou encerrar a live então, número redondinho aqui, vão ficar 4 horas de live aqui. Momento histórico para a humanidade, porque é a primeira missão totalmente privada a ir para a ISS, e a ideia da NASA é que outras missões dessa, com a SpaceX e a Action Space, também instalem módulos comerciais acoplados na ISS, módulos totalmente privados, para iniciar uma Global Economy of Low Earth Orbit, de baixa órbita terrestre, né? A economia de baixa órbita terrestre, e liberar a NASA para focar em quem? Em quem? Artemis, Goddess of Nature, Artemis que vai para a Lua. Estamos indo, o próximo teste aqui da Artemis é depois da manhã, 11 de abril, também vou fazer uma live aí do último teste aí da Artemis. Essa Artemis vai ser lançada em junho de 2022, vamos terminar com a Artemis, né? Junho de 2022, que é o meu foco, ela vai ser lançada então para sobrevoar a órbita da Lua ali então, hein? Só isso aqui, está lançado agora, junho de 2022. 2023, então, é a Artemis 2, que já vai tripulada com 4 astronautas, ou 3. Eles vão também sobrevoar a órbita da Lua em 2023. E aí a Artemis 3, finalmente, em 2024, nós vamos alunizar pela segunda vez aí, homens na Lua. First Woman vai ter a primeira mulher e a primeira pessoa negra a pisar a face da Lua depois de mais de 50 anos aí, né, das missões Apollo. Então, uma nova era de exploração espacial para a humanidade, com uma era de matriarcalidade, que a primeira mulher também vai lá para a Lua também, que joia. E a Artemis, irmã gêmea de Apolo, deusa da natureza, deusa dos animais. God bless Artemis, God bless Action, Mission, Action, Space, God bless SpaceX, Godspeed NASA, Godspeed all teams, todo o pessoal que trabalhou com isso, desde o pessoal que faz a cobertura, aí, os jornalistas, a equipe da NASA, a equipe de limpeza lá do NASA Kennedy Space Center, motoristas, a galera aqui, cientista, técnicos, mecânicos, todo mundo, toda a galera que trabalha aí na organização, administração. Nota 10, nota 1000 aí para vocês. Keep up the good work and God bless Artemis, Goddess of Nature. Mostre-nos sua beleza, deusa da natureza. God bless.